Jean and Neecy by Eugene Fabian, prologue. The moment Jean laid eyes on Neecy in the bustling halls of Plainfield High School, everything else faded into oblivion. She was a radiant force, captivating him effortlessly with her laughter and bright smile. It was the late autumn of 1977, and the world outside felt alive with potential. Jean, a wiry 16-year-old with keen eyes and a heart that beat wildly for her, had only one goal: to know her completely, to cherish every moment they could share. Little did he know that what began as innocent teenage romance would encounter the mighty winds of change, creating a rip in their fate that neither could foresee. As winter approached, hints of nostalgia sparkled in the air, mixing with the heartache of a love almost lost before it had truly begun. How could they possibly know of the storms that awaited them? Scene 1. A fateful encounter. The bright autumn sun streamed through the tall windows of the Wilcox High School art room, casting golden halos on the canvases that lined the walls. The air was thick with the musky scent of oil paints, mingling with the sweetness of freshly sharpened pencils. It was the beginning of a new period, but Jean Fabian, poised near the paint easels, felt as if the weight of the world hung on his every breath. He often distracted himself with humor, cracking jokes at the slightest opportunity. But today, his heart raced with an unfamiliar anticipation, one that he both craved and dreaded. Across the room, Neecy McKinney sketched delicately, her brow furrowed in concentration. Her fingers moved with an artist's grace, making delicate strokes that seemed to breathe life into the paper. She was a constellation of creativity, dressed in a flowing sundress that danced around her, vibrant and spirited, embodying the very essence of youth. Every so often she would toss her braided hair behind her shoulder, revealing shimmering eyes that sparkled with dreams. Jean felt a pull towards her, a magnetic force that left him breathless. As he glanced in her direction, their eyes locked for the briefest of moments, and the world faded into a blur. Jean could hear the laughter of other students, the scratching of chalk on boards, and the distant sounds of clattering lockers, yet in that instant it was as if everything stopped. Neecy smiled, a small, hesitant smile that sent a jolt through Jean's chest. He could hardly stand still. Curiosity spurred him forward. He made his way through the scattered tables, the chatter dimming as he approached. He stepped towards her. It seemed like all of a sudden they were all alone in the hallway, and he said to her, "Hello, how are you doing?" Extending out his hand. "My name is Jean. I would like to talk with you." She responded with a question. "About what?" He said getting to know you, and maybe having lunch with you in the cafeteria. Then he asked her for her phone number. This time she asked, "Why you want my phone number?" with a slight giggle. He responded, "Maybe I can call you in the evening sometime, and we can get to know each other better." Then she gave him her number, and they started talking every day and building an inseparable bond. Scene 2. Growing affection. The autumn leaves danced like whispers to the ground, their colors boldly bleeding into one another. Jean leaned against the graffiti-covered brick wall of the high school, a playful smirk resting on his lips. "So, Neecy, do you really think we can change the world with a bake sale?" he teased, his warm voice cutting through the brisk air, the faint scent of cinnamon lingering from the cafeteria. Neecy rolled her eyes, her chestnut curls bouncing in rhythm with her laughter, a melody that echoed with the sound of their secrets. "Hey, don't knock the power of chocolate chip cookies. They can inspire an entire revolution." She tossed a leaf at him, her eyes glimmering with a mischievous light. Across the yard, their friends clustered around a makeshift stage, the annual fall festival kicking off in a flurry of excitement. Almost instinctively, they found themselves inching closer, caught in a tide of emerging teenage dramas unfolding around them. Behold, the future of dance. Amber, the quintessential class clown, declared dramatically as she leaped onto the stage, her arms flailing like a windmill caught in a gale. Laughter erupted, not just from her cohorts but from others on the sidelines, and the electric buzz of overlapping conversations filled the air. "Neecy, that's your competition," Jean joked, nudging her gently. Her gaze flickered over towards Amber, then rested back on Jean, mischief lacing her expression. "Better watch out, or I'll form a dance committee and leave you in my dust." But as the laughter faded, a shadow passed over Neecy's face, a fleeting reminder of the weight she carried. The teasing banter masked an undercurrent of tension, a struggle between her budding dreams and commitment washed with ache. Just then, a familiar figure emerged from among the crowd. Ricky, Jean's childhood friend, his strut radiating a confident bravado. "Hey, Jean, I heard you might be winning this year's dance-off," he shouted, his laughter like the sharp crack of a whip. "Neecy, you better keep him grounded." Jean's eyes narrowed playfully. "I don't need grounding, just a better partner." The grin he wore felt brittle, a thin veneer over the heavier discourse blooming beneath the surface. "Wow, competitive much?" Neecy's grin faltered. The tension had shifted, jealousy stirred like unwanted roots beneath her skin as Ricky leaned closer, clearly enjoying the teasing. "You could always partner up with Ricky if you don't think I'm cutting it." "Please don't. I have standards," Jean shot back, laughter melting some of the palpable anxiety. But Neecy felt the sting of his words like a needle, the weight of vulnerability hazarding her spirit. Suddenly, the cacophony around them dulled, moments intersecting, destinies weaving tighter. "Let's go get some snacks," Neecy suggested, attempting to navigate the labyrinth of her emotions, her voice laced with urgency to escape the tension that was thickening like fog on the field. As they turned away, Neecy's mind raced, the warmth of her newfound affection warring against old fears of closeness. Behind them, the chorus of laughter erupted again, with Amber pulling Ricky into an impromptu dance that caught everyone's eye. In the quieter shadows of the school's hallway, she stopped abruptly, biting her lip. "Jean, can we talk?" He followed her lead, concern knitting his brow, the moment gaining weight. "What's up?" The words slipped from her grasp, entangled like the falling leaves outside. But before she could free them, a distant shout broke through, the unmistakable voice of Mrs. Jensen, the strictest teacher on staff, barking orders amidst the chaos of the festival. "Jean! Neecy! You two better not be slacking off!" Their eyes met, a collision of playful defiance and suppressed honesty. She took a deep breath, feeling a swell of courage. "I think I'm scared of this," she finally said, gesturing between them, "of getting too close again." Jean stepped closer, the autumn air shimmering around them, thick with unsaid emotions. "So what are we going to do? Just walk away?" In that moment of hesitation, the world around them faded, and everything else crystallized into clarity. The argument, the teasing, even Ricky's overshadowing laughter dimmed. This was about them, here and now. "Maybe," she whispered, "we should take it slow." "Or fast. A bake sale revolution needs a little flair," Jean replied, tipping his head, embedding a lightness into their serious refrain. And with that, a spark ignited, a whisper of new beginnings dancing in the crisp air around them, stolen moments colored by vulnerability, laughter, and the raw beauty of adolescence. Scene 3, Secrets and Confessions. The wooden floorboards of Neecy McKinney's cozy bedroom creaked softly underfoot as she tidied an assortment of colorful fabrics strewn across her drafting table. It was a mundane task, but the vibrant swaths of cloth felt like the possibilities of her imagination, waiting to be stitched into expression. The sunlight slanted through the window, casting playful shadows that danced down the walls, creating an atmosphere of warmth tinged with the bittersweet feeling of the past. Each fabric held a memory, but none heavier than the one she carried in her heart. The door swung open as Maya, Neecy's confidant with an ever-present energy, strolled in, twirling a pen between her fingers. "Okay, spill the tea. You've been all mopey since?" "Since." Maya threw her hands in the air, emphasizing the unspoken name. "Jean, what's going on?" Neecy's smile faltered momentarily, and she turned her focus back to the fabrics, letting the vibrant colors distract her. She bit her lip, her fingers clenching around a bright blue silk as though it were a lifeline. "It's nothing," she replied too quickly. Maya raised an eyebrow, her curiosity piqued. "Nothing? It's like saying the sky is orange when it's clearly blue. You're not fooling anyone. You've been a total whirlwind since that night at the cafe." Neecy tucked a loose curl behind her ear, a nervous habit that revealed her emotions as easily as her sketches revealed her dreams. I don't know, Maya. Every time I think of him, my heart races. But what if I mess it all up again?" With an exaggerated sigh, Maya sank onto the bed, leaning back as if her very posture might convince Neecy to let her in. "Girl, if I had $1 for every time I thought I'd mess up something, I could buy you a new sketch pad. Besides, you and Jean had something special. You're just scared, that's normal. Scared is an understatement, Neecy muttered. I haven't been able to sleep right. It's like I'm caught in this endless loop, his smile, the way he used to look at me, and then silence. Her voice cracked, a raw edge to it that echoed the depths of her uncertainty. Maya shifted, shooting a cautious glance toward the window, as if afraid the world beyond would overhear their confessions. What if it's like riding a bike? You fall a few times, but you get right back on. You're not just going to let him ride off into the sunset without saying anything? Not after all these years. But what if I've become someone he doesn't even recognize? Neecy sighed, leaning against the drafting table, her body language a blend of defiance and vulnerability. What if he's moved on? I mean, I have. Moved on? Or maybe just moved forward? Maya tapped her chin thoughtfully. Think of it this way. This is your chance to show him who you are now. Both of you have grown. You could have a fresh start. Neecy's eyes narrowed, contemplating this. But every time I think about seeing him again, I flash back to those moments. It's like I'm trapped in the nostalgia of what we were and scared of what we could be. A silence enveloped them, thick with unspoken thoughts. Neecy's fingers lingered on the blue silk, as if tracing the threads of fate. She glanced at Maya, whose earnest expression reaffirmed their bond. You can't let fear dictate your choices. Remember last summer? You didn't think you could take on that fashion show, but look how it turned out, Maya encouraged, her arms gesturing animatedly. You owned the runway, Neecy. You turned heads. What's stopping you from doing the same with Jean? But this isn't just business. Neecy hesitated, knowing that the next words would shift the air between them. It's about us. If I open that door again, what if I lose him for good? Maya leaned closer, her expression softened with understanding. Maybe it's time you stop being scared of the what-ifs and start embracing the why-nots. You both deserve happiness. Just think, spark it up like you did with those designs. Give it a proper chance to burn bright. With a shaky breath, Neecy ran her fingers through her curls, her mind racing with conflicting emotions. And if it goes up in smoke, then you'll know you tried, and isn't that better than never knowing at all? As the two girls shared a conspiratorial smile, Neecy's heart beat faster. Maybe, just maybe, she could face the remnants of their past. With an exhale, she began to feel a fragile sense of resolve form within her. Let's just see how it goes, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Yes, that's the spirit, Maya exclaimed, pumping her fist as if declaring victory in a battle fought long ago. Now, go on. Message him. Don't let this linger any longer. Life is too short. Neecy hesitated, glancing down as she clutched the blue silk tightly, its texture reminding her of hopeful beginnings. But in the quiet part of her heart, fear still loomed as large as any dream. Would she fly or fall? The answer waited just a heartbeat away, and the thrill of uncertainty made her pulse quicken in anticipation. Scene 4. The perfect day. The sun poured golden light over the neighborhood, illuminating streets that had known laughter and secrets for decades. Jean stood by the window of his room, watching the glow dance through the leaves of an old oak tree. Moments felt expansive, as if time itself was holding its breath for this day. Neecy's birthday. The 29th anniversary of the day someone so much more than a friend was brought into the world. He brushed a hand nervously through his hair, anticipation mixing with an undercurrent of anxiety. Could he really pull this off? Just as he settled on his plan, he heard her laughter in the distance, trouble cracking like a smile on his face. He grabbed the small porcelain gift box he'd carefully wrapped the night before, filled with trinkets from a shared childhood. He dashed out the door, the combination of bubbling excitement and what felt like a strong undertow pushing him forward. At the park, the air was thick with laughter and the melancholy notes of a nearby saxophonist. Jean spotted Neecy sitting on a bench, twirling her curly hair as she held forth to a couple of mutual friends, Diane and Malik. Her laughter sparkled like sunlight on water, making both him and the world around her feel lighter. I swear, if I can just get one more concert closed off, then I'll totally go viral, Neecy proclaimed, her eyes twinkling mischievously as she was animatedly explaining her dreams of becoming a filmmaker. Malik chuckled, leaning back against the bench. Just remember, Neecy, no one goes viral on accident. You need to let the camera love you. Diane elbowed him. Or just borrow Jean's charm. Look at him, he's practically glowing. Startled, Niecey turned at the sound of her name. Her face broke into a radiant smile as she met Jean's gaze. He lifted the gift box sheepishly, feeling his heart race. "Oh, is that for me?" she squealed, rising from her seat. Yeah," he said, though the joy was almost knocked out of him by her wide-eyed excitement. "Happy birthday." "Jean?" she exclaimed as she accepted the gift and sat back down, immediately launching into a frenzied unwrapping. Niecey's fingers trembled ever so slightly, and for a moment the bustling laughter around them faded into hushed whispers. Her excitement was palpable, the atmosphere brimming with potential. Inside the box, a set of colorful friendship bracelets, an old mixtape of their favorite songs, and a framed photo of them as kids at the amusement park appeared. Niecey's breath caught midway as she gazed at the picture, memories flooding through her eyes. "This is... wow, she stuttered, the vulnerability of the moment drawing out the deeper connections they shared. We always talked about making memories, you know? I wanted to give you something to remind you that you're amazing," Jean said, his voice steady but softer, inviting intimacy. A chuckle escaped her, elegant, shimmering in the afternoon sun. "You're not so bad yourself, Jean Fabian, but what else do you have planned, a sudden meteor shower?" "Well," he replied, drawing closer as the mischievous glint returned to her eyes, "I might have reserved a few surprise events with some live music and dancing. Something, special." Diane and Malik exchanged glances, bursting into jest. "Look at Jean, all slick, making moves." "Rarely show that side, huh?" Malik added, while Niecey watched Jean with amusement. Somewhere in her eyes there lay a flicker of longing, tracing back to moments repressed underneath layers of separation. A brief silence enveloped them before Niecey broke it, the softness in her voice almost a whisper. "You always did know how to chase away storm clouds." Jean stepped a little closer, gravitating toward her like gravity, which both frightened and enchanted him. The intimate space blurred all outside perceptions. He couldn't hold it back any longer. They both knew. He hesitated, searching her face for a hint of encouragement. "Can I kiss you?" Niecey's smile widened, emboldened by the weight of momentous secret yet to spill. "I thought you'd never ask." He leaned in, their breaths mingling as the world around them faded. The sweetness of her lips felt like the open sky, warm and inviting, a promise suspended in time. And just as he pulled away, Niecey's expression transformed, shifting as if the light of possibilities revealed something deeper tangled into her heart. The vibrance of their laughter and shared dreams wove a beautiful tapestry against the backdrop of complexity. It was, indeed, the perfect day. "I guess we're exclusive now, huh?" Niecey teased, her eyes sparkling with hope as Jean beamed, savoring every moment as if it were an art form, the colors of their past intertwining with the future. "Absolutely," he replied, settling back into the warmth of the moment. The world around them was alive, yet all he could focus on was Niecey's smile radiating like the sun above. Scene 5. Shadows of departure. The late afternoon sun shot through the canopy of ancient oak trees, dappling the ground with gold and shadow. A warm breeze carried the scent of freshly cut grass, mixed with the heavy sweetness of honeysuckle, wrapping around Niecey like a tender embrace. She stood at the edge of the schoolyard, yes, her heart thrumming in a quickening rhythm as laughter bubbled from the nearby basketball court. Jean's voice cut through the air, teasing the other boys into a frenzy. But laughter felt hollow today. With a slip of a white envelope tucked in her pocket, the weight of impending change sat heavy in her stomach, as though a storm brewed inside her. She glanced over at Jean, who was miming an exaggerated jump shot, his smile radiant, yet all she could see was the distance yawning between them. A moment later, Arabella, Niecey's younger sister, raced over, breathless and flushed. "Niecey, Mom says we have to go home. Now!" The urgency in her voice pulled Niecey from her reverie. "Why?" Niecey shrugged, shifting her weight, and ran a hand through her hair, the usual carefree locks now feeling like a wild tangle on her head. "What's the rush?" Arabella frowned, lips pressed into a thin line. "She got a call. They're moving like fast, before the week's out. To Atlanta, Mom says for work." The reality of her sister's words landed like a sharp pang, slicing through Niecey's stomach. "Atlanta?" Niecey echoed, almost laughing, though the laughter felt anxious. "Mom, she can't just uproot us like that." Her voice fell into a desperate whisper. "What about school? Friends?" Arabella's eyes softened, but her resolve held firm. I know, but she said it's for a better job with better pay. She's already packing boxes. Each breath seemed more difficult now. Leaving meant leaving Jean. Dark clouds gathered in her thoughts, the vibrant greens and yellows of the world around her dimming. Neecy took a step back, glancing once more toward the basketball court, where Jean appeared to mock throw his jersey in the air, the easy confidence that drew her in like a moth to a flame. Neecy! A voice broke through the laughter. Jean had spotted her. His sudden intensity made her stomach twist. Would he think she was drifting away? Are you coming to the game tonight? The word faltered in her throat, caught in a mixture of disbelief and a desperate desire to say yes, to cling to their shared moment. Come on, it'll be legendary, Jean urged, his playful smile faltering into something deeper. It was a plea wrapped in playful banter, and for a heartbeat, she could feel a world of possibilities stretching out before her. Arabella's impatient hand on her arm pulled her back. Neecy, come on, we need to go. With a glance, Neecy searched Jean's eyes, her heart hammering against her ribcage. I can't. I probably won't be around much longer. The words slipped from her lips, brittle and heavy. A fleeting flicker of understanding passed through Jean's features, his smile pinned somewhere between hope and bewilderment. What do you mean? He said, closing the distance between them. Well, the bright hues of their world sharpening against the sudden onset of reality. What are you talking about? And there it was. Her heart would not allow itself to break in front of him. Instead, she brushed her fingers against the envelope in her pocket, feeling the cold paper against her skin, a reminder of decisions already made. My mom wants to move. It's happening soon. The basketball game around them faded, replaced by a silence so palpable she thought it might swallow them whole. Jean's expression shifted as the weight of her words hit him. Neecy, why didn't you say anything? I didn't know, she protested, tears stinging her eyes. How could I? I thought we had more time. In the distance, a sudden cheer erupted from the court, loud and triumphant, muffled echoes of normalcy in a shifting world. But for Neecy, the vibrant scene blurred, a stark contrast against the grief curling around her heart. As Jean's eyes searched hers, she felt time shatter. Neecy, please, he said, desperation lacing his voice. Let's figure this out together. We can find a way. But the world had already begun to shift without them, moving in some unimaginable direction and leaving behind only shadows, a painful reminder that love, even the most unyielding, sometimes met insurmountable obstacles. I don't know if I can. Regret hung heavily between them, wrapped in silence thicker than autumn fog. She turned away, a small gasp catching in her throat as she hesitated, just briefly. She wanted to stay, wanted to hold on to him tightly, but felt the shadows of departure looming right above. All I know is, she paused, grappling with the rawness of her feelings, you're all I've ever wanted. Scene 6, the last goodbye. The rain poured down in persistent sheets, lashing against the iconic little diner where Jean and Neecy sought refuge. The hand-painted signage, faded yet charming, offered no solace from the charged air between them. Inside, the aroma of brewed coffee and sizzling bacon filled every corner of the booth they occupied, but their appetites had long fled. Jean leaned back, arms crossed tightly against his chest, his eyes darting to the raindrops racing down the window. So is this really it? Just like that? His light-hearted tone was undercut by the tremor in his voice. Neecy sat across from him, her fingers tracing the foolish doodles they had scratched onto the napkin, their childhood dreams haunting them from a time when life was simpler. The usually warm glow of the diner felt stifling now. I don't want it to be, she whispered, her voice barely rising above the sound of the rain. But can we really stay connected when there's so much distance? He leaned in, frustration mingling with concern. Neecy, it's not just distance. It's the life we have. What if you get swept up in your art, or... He waved his hands as if trying to catch the slippery threads of possibility. What if you forget? Forget, she echoed, her eyes flashing. Like you forgot I was going to be an artist, like you forgot how to lighten up. The sharp edge of jealousy crept into Jean's expression. What I forgot was how to let you go. It's easy for you to dream away your worries while I'm left here, trying to figure out if I can survive without you. Neecy turned, her voice rising just above the downpour. This isn't only your decision. You act like I'm the one who wants to run away. I want you to grow, Jean, just like I'm trying to find my own way." Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, reflecting the raindrops gliding down the glass beside her. An uneasy silence settled between them, punctuated by the rhythmic tap of rain, a reminder of the ticking clock on their fleeting moments. The emotions twisted and turned, resonating within the confines of the small booth, as tension filled the air like an impending storm. The place felt both quaint and suffocating. Just then, the door swung open, and a gust of wind swept through, carrying with it the scent of fresh rain, mixed with the echo of laughter from the diner's regular patrons. Jean's cousin, Malik, poked his head in, adjusting his cap as he waved. "Hey, didn't expect to find you here, bro. Thought you were up north for the summer?" Jean shifted uncomfortably. He offered a half-hearted smile, but his gaze remained fixed on Neecy. "Plans changed," he murmured, as Malik's presence faded into the background. Neecy caught Malik's eye and managed a gracious smile, but her heart was still hammering. "What are you doing here?" "Just figured I'd grab a bite. You know me, the quicker the better," Malik chuckled, pulling up a chair uninvited. "You two look deep in thought. What are you plotting, world domination?" "Nah, just planning how to survive 13 hours apart," Jean muttered, shooting Neecy an achingly desperate look. Malik raised an eyebrow, sensing the magnetic distance between them. "Got it. The classic 'I don't want you to leave' dilemma." Neecy tilted her head, catching the faint hint of amusement in Malik's smirk. "You could say that. The stakes are just high for some of us." A chuckle escaped her lips, unexpectedly lightening the mood. "High? I'd say they're sky high." Malik's voice rose, a teasing spark igniting in the heavy air. "With Neecy's brilliance and your charm, you guys could take this show on the road." Jean scoffed jokingly. "Yeah, until the first rainstorm hits, and the world tour sets sail straight for disaster." As laughter tossed some relief between them, Neecy leaned closer to Jean, her voice low, nearly swallowed by the persistence of the rain. "But seriously, Jean, do we just let go? Is that how this ends?" For a moment, the disarray of emotions faded into silence, the gravity of their past coiling tightly around them. Jean reached across the table, brushing her fingers, slightly trembling. "We can promise to keep our hearts open, can't we? So we don't have to." "Forget," she finished for him, their eyes locking. "No, we won't forget. I promise." A smile peeked through the tension, frail yet compelling, as they grasped onto their vows, even while the rain clawed at the windows, like whispers of what could be lost. In that moment, sitting at the edge of goodbye, a quiet resolve formed. Malik watched, sensing the underlying current of unspoken words, as he leaned back in his chair, eyes sparkling with amusement. The world outside blurred, as inside, two hearts prepared to brave the storm. Scene 7. Moving on. The sun hovered low over the horizon, spilling pools of gold across a worn wooden table at the local diner. Jean Fabian sat there absent-mindedly toying with the remnants of his chocolate milkshake, the thick vanilla-scented air wrapping around him like a warm blanket. He glanced around, noting the chatter of friends, the clinking of forks against plates, each sound sharpening the dull ache in his heart. Across from him, Ava, his newest distraction, laughed too loud, flailing her arms as she recounted a story from the art class they shared. And then Miss Gordon's wig flew off right in the middle of class. You should have seen the look on everyone's faces. Her laughter burst through like sunlight breaking a heavy cloud, but it felt hollow against the backdrop of Jean's swirling memories. "Yeah, totally hilarious," Jean replied, his voice devoid of real enthusiasm. The thin walls absorbed his indifference, and part of him hated himself for it. In the corners of his mind, Neecy danced among memories, her wild curls bouncing, her laughter like a gentle breeze in spring. Ava tilted her head, her brow knitted in concern. "Jean, you okay? You've been kind of quiet." He forced a smile. "Just thinking about stuff, you know." He shot her a quick glance, noticing how her vivid green eyes seemed to search him for something he wasn't ready to share. "Honestly, I do. You've been so wrapped up in Neecy's absence. Maybe we should hit the arcade later? You could use some good vibes." She nudged him playfully, her lips curled into a smile that momentarily banished his thoughts of the past. "Sure," he said, although part of him felt like he'd just agreed to eat a plate of cold leftovers. "Great! I'll crush you at pinball," Ava declared. her youthful enthusiasm infectious enough to make him laugh despite himself. In that moment, the bell above the door chimed and Jean's laughter faded. He turned, unwillingly tethered to the doorway where Margot, their friend, stood, her expression tight and serious. She wasn't one for shows of vulnerability, but today felt different. An air of urgency hung around her like a storm cloud. "Jean," she called, urgency creeping into her voice. "You need to see this." "What is it?" he asked, masking an instinctual dread as he watched her march over to their table. "It's about Neecy," Margot replied, causing an involuntary shiver to run through him. "She's back in town." A beat of silence stretched before Jean could respond, disbelief feeding the knot in his stomach. "Back? Like she actually came back?" "Yeah," Margot pressed, impatience dancing in her green eyes like a flickering flame. "She's working at the gallery downtown. I thought you might want to know." As her words sank in, Jean squeezed the milkshake glass, his knuckles whitening. "What does that mean for you?" Ava asked, her tone cracking the fragile emotional barrier he had constructed. "Nothing," he said sharply, then softened. I need some air." Before they could react, Jean slipped from his seat and pushed through the door, the sudden chill of evening air cutting through the warmth of the diner. He leaned against the cool brick wall outside, desperately seeking clarity in the chaos swirling in his chest. The weight of the past pressing against him like a vice. Margot followed him, her footsteps crunching gravel beneath her feet. "Hey, wait up! Are you really okay with this?" "Does it matter?" Jean blurted, his voice louder than intended. The truth was feral, clawing its way through his defenses. Memories painted visions of sun-drenched afternoons, kisses sweet as summer fruit, the anticipation of a future stolen from him. Margot placed a hand on his shoulder. "You need to talk about it. This isn't just another distraction, Jean." They stood there, the ephemeral glow of streetlights flickering overhead, illuminating unspoken fears hanging between them. "I don't know what to do," he finally confessed, the rush of vulnerability spilling out with quiet intensity. "The first step is just to look her in the eye," Margot urged, the sincerity in her voice a beacon guiding him through the fog. "Yeah, maybe," he murmured, thoughts straying once again to Neecy. She could still upend his world, a force of nature reappearing to stir the deeply buried dreams they'd once crafted together. As the night swallowed them in shadows, Jean took a deep breath, the air thick with the promise of change, a bittersweet taste he couldn't quite name. Scene 8. Echoes of the past. The sun hung low in the sky, casting warm stripes of light across the bustling street, the kind of light that wraps around you like a worn woolen blanket. Outside Anna's coffee house, the faint hum of jazz drifted from within, mingling with the distant laughter of friends gathered on the patio. Jean Fabian, now 30, shifted his weight from one foot to another, a coffee cup in hand, its steam curling upward like fragile ribbons in the warm air. He scanned the small, cozy establishment, his heart tethered to the past yet restless in the present. The scent of freshly brewed coffee was intoxicating, overpowering the lingering aroma of pastries. Just as he turned, a figure caught his eye, a flash of vibrant curls and familiar curves. Neecy McKinney stood near the counter, her back to him, laughter dancing around her as she animatedly chatted with a barista. "Jean, man, get it together," he muttered under his breath, his entire being caught between the desire to shout her name and the stranglehold of fear. The memories crashed over him, waves of nostalgia enveloping his heart, midnight conversations, stolen moments, fleeting happiness. Neecy turned slightly, her laughter fading into a soft gasp as their eyes met. Time slowed. The world beyond faded, the sunlight dimmed, and suddenly it was 1977 again. The sensation engulfed him, drawing him back to a sun-kissed grass beneath a summer sky, her laughter echoing like a symphony. "Jean?" she whispered, hesitant yet curious, the recognition sparking in her eyes like fire igniting dry leaves. Jean swallowed hard, the bashfulness of their youth tugging at him. "Neecy," he finally breathed, the name heavy on his tongue with years of unspoken words. He took a step forward, the sound of his shoes echoing against the cobblestones, yet the distance between them felt miles. Before he could sort through the rush of emotions, elation, fear, and the memories trapped in amber, Neecy looked down, her fingers absently fiddling with the charm bracelet on her wrist. Jean noticed a new charm, a small paintbrush, and it struck a chord deep within him. Art always had been her refuge, a world where color drowned out the gray. Neecy, he started, but the silence stretched, reminding him of how they had always struggled to find the right words. Everything okay? She asked, peering at him with those piercing eyes that once saw through his bravado. Been a while. Yeah, just life, he replied, trying to keep it light, but the weight of the years pressed down. The tension was palpable, a live wire straining to bridge the gap between their hearts. Life can be a funny thing, she mused, and Jean couldn't help but recall the late-night laughter they shared over games of Monopoly, talking about the future while making elaborate plans. Somewhere, a bell chimed, shattering the cocoon of silence that had started to build around them. They both flinched, drawn back to their realities. I should go, Neecy murmured, her voice barely a whisper. Busy day. You know how it is. His heart fell, instinctively drawing closer, a moth to the flame of their entwined history. Sure. Yeah, no rush. The timidity in his voice startled him. He half expected her to smile, to inch closer, but instead, she took a small step back, causing a fracture in the air thick with unspoken words. Suddenly, laughter erupted from behind them. A group framed one of the tables outside, their banter lively and infectious, adding an awkward contrast to the electric tension between Jean and Neecy. Hey, they're calling you, one of the friends shouted, waving over. Neecy glanced back, torn between the past and the present, as her friends drew her further into their vibrant world. Tell them I'll be right there, she yelled back, and Jean's heart sank. Turning to him, her expression softened. It's really great to see you. Do you still? Her words trailed off, and the question hung heavily in the air, tangled in their mutual uncertainties. Jean's heart raced, an ache swelling within him. I still think about you, he confessed, surprised at the admission that slipped from his lips, loaded with everything he had buried over the years. Neecy's eyes widened, a flicker of surprise crossing her face, before hopefulness crept back in. Then we should catch up soon? Over coffee? Yeah, definitely. I'd like that, he smiled, almost shyly. An understanding passed between them before the moment shattered, each returning to their separate worlds. As Neecy turned to walk away, Jean felt a heavy weight lift from his heart, even as worry flickered within him. Would she remember? Would she dare to take that leap again? With a last glance over her shoulder, Neecy smiled, a delicate, fragile thing. In that fleeting moment, all Jean could think was that perhaps hope was still alive. Digital reconnection. Amid an uncommonly warm October afternoon, the sun draped its golden sheen over the small town of Riverwood. Neecy McKinney sat cross-legged on her living room sofa, fingers poised over her laptop's keyboard. The scent of freshly brewed coffee wafted through the room, mingling with the faint scent of cinnamon from the candles she often lit to ground her thoughts. Each flicker of the flame seemed to mirror the chaos thrumming in her mind. With a determined breath, Neecy navigated to her social media profile. She scrolled through a kaleidoscope of memories, friends flourishing, loves arrived and departed, but amidst it all, one name pulsed like a beacon in her heart: Jean Fabian. Having been instrumental in her teenage dreams, Jean had morphed into a phantom somewhere along the line. She leaned closer, the shadows from the window framing her face as she hesitated, fingers hovering. Memories flooded. Laughter that hummed with their inside jokes, nights spent under the stars, shared secrets hidden beneath a tapestry of hope. Just send the request. She urged herself, her voice hardly filtering past the hushed silence of the afternoon. Her thumb trembled as it touched the button. The friend request soared into the digital ether, and Neecy fell back against the sofa as if released from some binding spell. Was it the right move? Would Jean even remember her? The thought swirled, unsettling yet thrilling. The warmth of the day felt different now, wrapped in a layer of nostalgia. In the kitchen, her sister, Tasha, flitted about, rattling pots and pans while tossing out casual commentary. Are you seriously still on that? Tasha's voice cut through the silence, playful in its teasing. What's he up to now? You gonna marry him, or just add him to your collection? Neecy rolled her eyes, but couldn't help the chuckle that escaped. You know it's complicated, she replied, tucking a stray curl behind her ear. Tasha was the type to light up a room, an effortlessly charming force whose laughter filled the gaps in life with ease. He's a part of my past, Tasha appeared at the doorway with an exaggerated quirk in her brow. The kind of past you daydream about, or the kind that haunts your nightmares? As Neecy contemplated the question, her phone buzzed, sending her heart into overdrive. It was an alert for the friend request. Her breath caught in her throat. She blinked at the screen, a sinking weight settling in her stomach. "Uh-oh," Tasha sang, her eyes widening like saucers. The beginning of a love story or a terrible soap opera. Neecy waved her away, returning to the screen. "Either way, it's a story. I have to see how this plays out." Meanwhile, at his cluttered apartment across town, Gene sat hunched over his own laptop. Cheesy rock music reverberated through the walls, an echo of a lilting youth that still clung to him. He was working on his own past, crafting stories for a local magazine piece, fingers iffy on the keyboard. Normally, he soaked in the intensity of what was around him, but today his mind was drawn elsewhere. A blinking notification on his screen interrupted the flow. Confused, he squinted. Neecy McKinney. A friend request. "Wow," Gene mumbled, the words heavy with the weight of memories. He chuckled softly, recalling how, in high school, she'd teased him about his penchant for big hair and even bigger ambitions. But she had been there, always grounding him. The laughter faded, replaced by hesitant curiosity. Would she want to rebuild what they once shared? He glanced at a framed photograph on the wall. They were laughing in a wooden booth at the grill, a moment frozen in time, easy smiles illuminating their faces. His heart quickened. "Come on, Gene, what's the worst that could happen?" he asked himself, heart racing faster than his thoughts. The weight of their past stayed like an unwinking star in the night, urging him forward. He clicked accept. "Now we're really playing with fire," Gene murmured, his tone laced with playful certainty. Back at Neecy's, the silence felt charged. Her heartbeat thrummed in her ears like the ticking of a clock, echoing the potential for renewal. Tasha, busy slicing vegetables, noticed her sister's sudden silence. "What's cooking in that brain of yours?" Tasha quizzed, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Neecy grinned, her cheeks warming with hope and trepidation. "Just the start of something I can't quite predict," she replied, excitement bubbling between them. "Make sure you're ready for anything," Tasha warned, a smile playing on her lips. "Or anyone." Neecy pulled her phone close, heart soaring, aware that a new chapter beckoned, filled with old emotions and untold possibilities, as she whispered to the universe, "Let's see how this plays out." Scene 10. Messages from the Heart. The late afternoon sun spilled through the kitchen window, illuminating a sprawling pile of papers on the weathered table. Gene Fabian sat hunched over the mess, mulling over old letters, postcard images of local landmarks, and handwritten notes that had once been exchanged with fervor. Dust motes danced in the golden light, whispering echoes of a simpler time, a time when hope carried less weight than it did now. He picked up a note, its edges slightly crumpled, ink faded from years of being stashed away. Neecy McKinney leaned against the kitchen doorframe, arms crossed. Her voice was playful but carried an undercurrent of nostalgia. "I can't believe you actually kept that stuff. Does it make you weep like one of those romantic poets?" Gene smirked, heart thumping at the sight of her, the sunlight catching in her curly hair. "Not quite, but you wouldn't believe the drama I had while crafting my perfect run-on sentences." He held up a postcard of a lake, its water shimmering like diamonds. "Ah, the infamous Serenade by the Sea letter." Neecy stepped closer, curiosity piqued. "I'd pay to see that. You always knew how to turn water into wine when you wrote." Gene chuckled. "Well, maybe the real talent was not spilling grape juice all over it." But beneath the humor, a thread of vulnerability tugged at him. Would they ever move beyond this playful banter? A part of him craved to peel away the layers and reveal the heart beneath. Speaking of terrible poetry, remember that sunny day by the fountain? Neecy's smile turned wistful, her fingers grazing the edges of a photograph. "We dared each other to sing our silly songs in public, and then you actually did it." He dropped the letter, laughter still on his lips, but feeling the warmth of her gaze shift his focus. "You were the one who pushed me. I just wanted to prove I could embarrass myself more than you could." Her eyes sparkled with mischief. "And how did that turn out? Did you win?" "I think I might have until you joined in, of course." He paused, emotions blooming like spring flowers. It felt like freedom. Everything seemed possible. Neecy nodded, her expression softening. And now? Does it still feel possible, or has life boxed you in? Jean shrugged, a casual gesture that belied the storm brewing within him. Life is full of corners, but then there's also, the occasional window. Neecy sensed the shift in mood and sought a way to lighten the heavy pause. Speaking of boxes, did you ever unpack that infamous collection of bad jokes you stashed? Just thinking of them gives me existential goosebumps. His laughter erupted, breaking through the tension. Okay, let's not traumatize ourselves again. I think we deserve better after all those groan-worthy punchlines. Across town at Neecy's favorite cafe, the barista Nina carefully balanced a set of custom cupcakes on a tray, each a vibrant explosion of color. She paused, hearing a commotion at a small round table. Olivia, Neecy's best friend, raised her hand in mock protest, desperately trying to manage a disagreement between two loud patrons arguing over the last slice of lemon tart. "What's going on over there?" Nina asked, a smirk playing on her lips as she completed her order. "Oh, just another battle of the dessert dignitaries," Olivia replied, rolling her eyes. "One slice, and suddenly they're defending their culinary honor like it's the fate of the world." As laughter echoed through the cafe, it became clear that even amidst chaos, a shared joy remained. Neecy knew this, the light-hearted connection of friends, the laughter that filled spaces and made life bearable. Back in the kitchen, Jean cleared his throat, focusing back on Neecy. No matter how many corners life throws at us, we'll always have memories. A fragile thread connected them, but he could feel the weight of what they had lost overshadow it. Neecy searched his eyes, vulnerability surfacing as she whispered, "And perhaps a chance to create new ones?" For a moment, the kitchen felt alive, filled with the scent of nostalgia colliding with the promise of more. Each heartbeat echoed the unspoken question lingering in the air. Would they dare to explore what lay beyond the past? Holding eye contact, Jean felt something shift, an unnameable energy sparking between them, a hesitant brush against what could become. "New memories, huh? Sounds like a recipe worth tasting." They shared a quiet laugh, wrapped in the warmth of a moment both familiar and new, unaware of where this would lead them next, but something inside shimmered with hope. Scene 11. Planning for reunion. The Florida sun draped itself lazily over the horizon, casting a warm, golden hue across Jean's kitchen table as he stared at the phone, the static hum of anticipation curling around him. He could almost feel the weight of Neecy's laughter echoing in his mind, its richness filling the empty spaces of the room. He hesitated. Did she remember the way the sunlight caught in her curls? Could she feel the electric hum of old memories sparking back to life, as he did? Suddenly the phone vibrated, jerking him from his reverie. With a burst of energy, he snatched it up, his fingers trembling as they danced over the buttons to dial her number. And as the phone rang, the air thickened with expectation. In a starkly lit apartment in Atlanta, Neecy was lost in her own world, paint splatters decorating her arms as she stood before a blank canvas. The scent of turpentine mingled with her anxiety, a potent reminder that she was always teetering on the precipice of creation and chaos. Yet the tightness in her chest called her back to the present. Would Jean answer? What would they say? The thoughts cascaded, each one more urgent than the last, until, "Neecy?" Jean's familiar voice poured through the receiver, settling around her like a warm blanket. "Jean," she replied, a tremor of disbelief threading through her words. "Is it really you?" A soft chuckle resonated, rich and warm. "Yeah, it's me. Hard to believe, huh?" Their laughter rang out in tandem, chasing away the shadows lurking at the edges of their memories. "I was thinking," Jean continued, "maybe we could finally meet up, like old times." He fidgeted with the edge of the tablecloth, the slight tug betraying his eagerness. "Meet up? Like in person?" she echoed, half laughing, half wondering if she were brave enough to delve back into that world again. "Yeah. I mean, how about Georgia? I could show you the lake, take you to that little diner that has those amazing milkshakes, just like we used to." "Milkshakes?" She smirked, picturing his wide grin as he'd always exaggerated the deliciousness of a chocolate shake. "What, are you trying to bribe me with ice cream?" "Well, it worked back then, didn't it?" he teased back, a hint of vulnerability creeping into his voice. Neecy's heart swelled, but it was quickly eclipsed by a wave of doubt. "I don't know, Jean. What if things are different now?" Things are different, sure, he acknowledged. But what if they're good different? We can't keep dancing around this forever. In that moment, her paintbrush fell to the floor, an accidental blur red streaking across her canvas, mirroring the chaos brewing in her chest. You sound so sure, she mused, her bravado faltering. What if our paths have diverged too much? I'd like to think we make a good map together, regardless of the detours, he said softly. For a heartbeat, the vulnerability hung there between them, a thread woven from shared histories and hopes yet unspoken. But before she could respond, the door swung open, interrupting the moment. Hey, Neecy, I brought the sandwiches. Her roommate, Maya, barged in, the smell of fresh bread infiltrating the air, bursting with enthusiasm. Is Neecy ready for her lunch date with an old flame? Neecy shot Maya a warning glance, trying to juggle the phone and the laughter emanating from the other end. Jean, hold on a sec. As she turned to face her roommate, Jean's voice filtered back into her ear, his tone both teasing and concerned. Old flame, huh? Sounds like you've got some explaining to do. More like you owe me lunch after this conversation, she shot back, an impish grin softening the tension. What if I want to discuss other flames? With playful tenacity, Maya plopped down in the chair across from Neecy, steaks raised and sandwiches on the table like contestants in a cook-off. You have to tell me everything. Jean, I might need a moment. Neecy stumbled, torn between the two worlds closing in on her. Fine, we can make it dinner. Just think about it, okay? His voice dipped softer, like the murmur of a fragile dream, before hanging up with a hesitant promise. In that instant of hanging silence, Neecy met Maya's wide eyes, a cocktail of excitement and panic swirling in her chest. So you actually do want to see him? Maya prodded, nudging a sandwich closer. Do I? Neecy pondered aloud, the weight of the phone's stillness drifting in the air. The complexities of her heart twisted tighter, the lines between the past and now blurring like her paint on the canvas. What if I don't even remember how to be with him? Then you'll just have to learn all over again, Maya offered, a conspiratorial smile creeping in. What's life without a little chaos? The world is a stage, and you're the leading lady. Neecy chuckled, a sense of profound possibility unfurling within her. Perhaps chaos was just the start of another story waiting to be told, a vivid painting inching toward completion. Scene 12. Neecy's arrival. The air hung thick with the sweet scent of magnolia as Jean leaned against the warm, peeling pier, shoulders tense under the weight of memories. The summer sun cast long shadows over the dock, shimmering on the surface of the water like fleeting glimpses of the past. It had been years since he'd seen her, years since they'd shared laughter beneath these old trees. Jean glanced at his watch, the twisted coils of anticipation knotting tighter in his stomach. Would she recognize him? Would he recognize her? As if summoned by the very thought, he spotted Neecy stepping out of her sister's car, sunlight bouncing off her hair like it was woven from gold. He inhaled sharply, her essence struck him like a thunderbolt, tangible and vivid. Here goes nothing, he muttered to himself, pushing off the railing to close the distance. Each step felt precarious, as if the cobblestones beneath his feet might crumble under the sudden weight of longing. Neecy stood there, her back to him, gazing out over the water, arms crossed defensively over herself, yet radiating the same pulsing spirit he remembered so well. The breeze caught her skirt, billowing it gently, as if Mother Nature herself were welcoming her home. Neecy, he managed, his voice trembling between excitement and fear. She turned slowly, the recognition blooming in her dark eyes like a flower thrust into sunlight after a long winter. Jean, she breathed, an echo of disbelief dancing in her tone, sweet and raw. In just a heartbeat, the years melted away as she rushed into his open arms. The embrace was fierce and tender, a collision of longing that neither had anticipated but both desperately craved. He could feel her heartbeat, quickening and wild, as though it spoke the words neither dared to voice. Wow, she laughed softly, pulling back just enough to meet his gaze, her fingers lingering on his arms, grounding him. It's really you. Really me, he replied, struggling against the floodgate of memories threatening to drown him. You haven't changed a bit. And you, she teased, playfully punching him in the shoulder. Still using those old lines? They both laughed, the sound a balm for the anxious tension swirling in the air. but there was a weight to their words, cloaked in the shared silence of unspoken questions. Suddenly, a raspy voice cut through their moment. "There's that boy I used to see running through the neighborhood like a wild rabbit. And Neecy, look at you, still trying to chase your dreams?" Jean turned to see his neighbor, Mrs. Ellison, leaning her cane against her hip, a quirk of a smile teasing her lips. "I'm not chasing, Mrs. Ellison, just trying to catch up," Neecy replied, warmth threading her voice, a familiar lilt he had always cherished. Mrs. Ellison chuckled, her laughter a wind chime in the quiet of the afternoon. "You know, dreams do have a way of slipping through your fingers when you're busy trying to catch them." As Neecy and Mrs. Ellison exchanged pleasantries, Jean quietly observed, grappling with his own swirling thoughts. Neecy seemed more vibrant than he remembered, yet there lurked an uncertainty in her eyes, the same uncertainty that had haunted their past. And then, returning to her, he caught her gaze again, that spark igniting once more between them. The world around them faded, leaving only the warmth of bodies close enough to feel the electric thrill of connection. And in that moment, Jean couldn't help but wonder, could they bridge the distance of time and transform those haunting memories into something tangible? Was their love still alive, buried beneath years of silence? The moment teetered on the edge of something deeper, something they both wished for but feared to claim. Just then, without thinking, Jean brushed his fingers against the nape of her neck, an action so simple yet filled with longing. Her breath hitched, and for a heartbeat, they stood suspended in time, suspended in possibility. "Neecy," he murmured, his voice thick, threatening to spill secrets he had kept for too long. But before he could find the words, a sudden shout broke through the delicate moment. "Jean! Neecy, over here!" It was Clyde, bounding towards them, his infectious, boisterous laughter adding an unwelcome puncture to the intense bubble surrounding Jean and Neecy. Just like before, the world was poised to intrude on their fragile reunion, but the connection lingered, unresolved, a promise waiting in the wings, begging to be explored. "Looks like we've got company," Neecy said, a smile playing on her lips, but beneath the laughter was a hint of a challenge. The echoes of their past were deeper than they both fully understood, but one thing was crystal clear. Whatever lay ahead, their second chance had just begun. Scene 13. Walking down memory lane. The air was still thick with the humidity of a lingering summer, the sun dipping low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the neighborhood. Jean Fabian, now a man at 29, paused at the edge of a street lined with the skeletal remains of crumbling brick houses and wildflower gardens. The familiar sights twisted in his chest, haunting yet beautiful like a bittersweet symphony. He glanced sideways at Neecy McKinney. She stood, a picture of quiet resolve, her expressive brown eyes reflecting the fading sunlight. Memories tumbled through him like autumn leaves. "This is it," Jean said, his voice breaking slightly, a tremor of nostalgic warmth underlaid with uncertainty. "I figured you'd want to see everything." Neecy tilted her head, her curly hair catching the waning light, as if the universe itself turned to watch their reunion. "Show me, then," she challenged, a flicker of mischief in her smile warming Jean's blood. They walked down memory lane, a name only they understood. The first stop was the abandoned lot where they once built their make-believe city of cardboard and dreams. "Right here," Neecy whispered, kneeling to touch the ground. "Yeah," Jean replied, swallowing hard. "Can you believe we had plans to take over the world?" Neecy laughed softly, the sound cutting through the remnants of silence like a summer breeze. "What happened to that ambition?" A shadow crossed Jean's face, memories intermingling with regrets. "Life happened. We got distracted." The laughter faded as they stepped into the old ice cream parlor, its faded neon sign flickering like a heartbeat. The scent of stale waffle cones mixed with the comforting smell of artificial cherry, bringing back summers spent entwined in childhood camaraderie. "Remember the time you dared me to eat 10 scoops?" Neecy asked, a sparkle igniting in her expression. "And you did." Jean chuckled, feeling lighter like a balloon released from restraint. Yet as they reminisced, an uncomfortable undercurrent surged, silent stories caught between them. Jean's smile faltered as he recalled Neecy's departure that heart-wrenching day. "Things change, don't they?" His tone skipped over the deep chasm of what they hadn't said in years. "Yeah, they do." Neecy's gaze turned serious, searching his face. But what about now? What do we do with all this? Before he could respond, her phone buzzed, a sudden reminder of their chaotic adult lives. Niecey's brow furrowed as she glanced at the screen. I should. No, Jean interrupted, the protective impulse rising within him. Just be here. The tension thickened, almost palpable, as the ghosts of their choices clouded the air. Niecey hesitated, her heart a tumultuous sea of conflicting emotions. Jean, Please, just for a moment, he said, taking a step closer, their shared space an electric current igniting old flames. Let's not dwell on the past for just a little longer. Okay, her breath hitched, and each heartbeat felt like a ticking clock, counting down to an impossible decision. What about the old fountain? Jean suggested, redirecting their energy, gesturing toward the small greening structure. That was where you told me I made the best peanut butter sandwiches. Not just the best. They were legendary, Niecey said, her voice teasing, yet laced with tenderness. As they reached the fountain, the sound of dripping water fell rhythmically around them, an echo of nostalgia intertwined with hope. The laughter of their childhood played on repeat in the air. Do you ever miss the simplicity? Jean asked, eyes tracing the chipped tiles. Every day, she admitted, lowering her gaze. Then in a rush, and sometimes I feel like a coward for running from everything. That makes two of us, Jean revealed, his voice raw. Every time I thought I was moving on, I'd find myself back here, remembering, wondering. In a way, we've both made mistakes, she said, vulnerable. But between us, they were just steps we needed to take to be here, right? He met her gaze, a spark of understanding flaring between them as the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows of reckonings and dreams never pursued. It's just, Jean began, but before he could voice the deep-seated fears that consumed him, Niecey broke in, her smile unfolding hope. Let's not run anymore. It's messy, but messy is better than lonely, Jean finished, the weight of their shared history pressing upon both of them as her fingers brushed his, igniting a warmth that had lingered even amidst the years apart. Let's rewrite the story then, she whispered, an adventurous glint lighting her eyes. Together? He asked tentatively. Together. As twilight settled around them, the world seemed to hold its breath. Memories danced in the shadows, a reminder of what could be. The past remained fractured, yet a thread of profound connection lingered between them, waiting to weave a new future. Scene 14. Rekindling chemistry. The kitchen hummed softly with the sound of simmering sauce, the aroma of garlic mingling with the scent of fresh basil. Sunshine poured in through the window, bathing the worn wooden table where Jean and Niecey stood, a small world contained in flour-dusted chaos. Niecey giggled as Jean shaped the dough, flour clinging to his fingers like snow on tree branches. You know, if we ever opened a pizzeria, we'd be millionaires by now, Niecey said, a teasing lilt in her voice as she deftly formed her own ball of dough. Jean smirked, his eyes sparkling with mischief. Yeah, but we'd probably end up spending it all on flour. Look at this! He flourished the dough like a trophy, but soon lost his grip, sending it splatting onto the floor with a soft thud. Niecey burst into a fit of laughter, the kind that lifted the corners of her eyes and brightened her voice. Should we charge a cover fee for our cooking skills? Only if you promise to bring that hot chocolate you used to make, Jean replied, resting his hands on his hips. The smile on his face faded slightly, a flicker of serious nostalgia flashing through his eyes. It surprised him how such simple memories could stir a storm in his chest. Remember those winter nights, bundled up on the couch, watching old movies? Niecey paused, kneading the dough with purpose as silence enveloped them, heavy with memories that lingered like the scent of cinnamon in a cold room. She looked up, catching his gaze. You mean the ones where we snuck in hot chocolate and spilled it all over Mom's sofa? Hey, that's a classic, Jean exclaimed, his laughter skimming the surface of a deeper, unspoken tension. As their shared laughter faded like the echoes of a familiar song, Niecey turned serious. What if we just opened that door again? You know, the one we didn't lock before. Jean's heart raced at the suggestion, emotions surging within him like flour in the air, and he struggled to hide it behind a playful facade. You mean like a pizzeria or... He let the sentence trail off, the unspoken possibilities hanging between them. Suddenly, the kitchen door swung open, breaking the moment. Lila, Niecey's spirited younger sister, dashed in, her bright yellow sundress swirling around her like a sunbeam. Neecy, you're missing it! She pointed excitedly to a blurred television image of a dance competition. They're doing that routine we practiced last summer. Can you believe this? Neecy chuckled, glancing at Jean, who shrugged, tucking his hands deeply into his pockets. She loved how Lila always managed to pivot the mood, a breeze shifting the weight in the air. Yeah, I remember, Jean said, rolling his eyes playfully. The routine that turned your living room into a minefield? I think I still have a scar from that dance-off. Please. We were both terrible, but at least I had the grace to fall on my feet. Neecy winked, her grin infectious. But beneath the laughter, another layer lurked, raw and unacknowledged. The tension spun tighter. Neecy turned back to Jean, still holding that focused intensity in her gaze, as if she wanted to unveil something hidden beneath layers of friendship, laughter, and shared experiences. Speaking of routines, she began slowly, her voice dipping lower. It's hard, Jean. The idea of just jumping back into something we left behind. Jean shifted, momentarily wrestling with the weight of her words, the lightheartedness of the kitchen darkening slightly. He stepped closer, the gap narrowing like the chasm of unsaid affection. Maybe it's time to take the leap. Lila, noticing the change in the atmosphere, peered between them with bright eyes. What leap? Are you two finally going to jump off the couch into a pool of hot chocolate? Neecy laughed again, but there was a linger of hesitation as Jean straightened up, trying to find courage in humor. The leap of faith, Lila. We're just brainstorming ideas for our new pizzeria. Good, because I was afraid you two were going to jump into some dramatic love story, and I don't have a book for that. Lila picked up a pie plate, holding it like a trophy. The moment hung delicately, the laughter surrounding them like a thin veil, shielding deeper vulnerabilities. Jean caught Neecy's gaze again, that flicker of something electric passing between them, igniting old memories and new possibilities. The laughter had buried it, but the quiet lingered like every unspoken promise they had clutched tightly in their hearts. Well, Jean said finally, let's make sure whatever leap we take, we at least have some good sauce to go with it. Always. Neecy replied with warmth, her smile rekindling, bridging the distance between the past and the uncertain future they both faced. Scene 15. Confronting the past. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows against the vibrant graffiti-strewn walls of the East Side neighborhood, where Jean had first shared stolen moments with Neecy. The air was thick with the scent of freshly cut grass and the distant echo of laughter from a nearby block party. A slight breeze stirred the fraying edges of the makeshift picnic blanket spread on the grassy knoll where they had chosen to meet. Jean sat with his arms resting on his knees, his posture tense, a deep crease in his brow revealing the storm brewing beneath his light-hearted facade. Neecy approached, her smile faltering as she caught sight of him. She wore a flowing sundress, its fabric dancing delicately in the wind, but her expression belied the carefree image. "Hey!" she said softly, barely above a whisper, as she settled beside him, the familiar warmth of her presence sparking a mix of comfort and tension. He looked up, his dark brown eyes searching her face. "Hey!" His voice was low, hesitant, as if testing the waters. Unconsciously, his fingers fidgeted with a frayed thread on the blanket. They sat in silence, the unspoken words hanging like raindrops poised to fall. Jean clenched his jaw, biting back the laughter he usually relied on to diffuse heavy moments. He could feel the way her presence affected the air around them, charged, electric. It sparked memories, late-night conversations, dreams shared in hushed tones. Neecy finally broke the silence. I think about that summer sometimes." She traced circles in the grass with her fingertip, avoiding his gaze. The feelings felt so real. "Yeah," Jean's voice caught, the weight of those memories settling heavily on his chest. "But you left." His words were sharper than intended, and he instantly regretted the edge, but the truth lingered beneath both of their skins. "I had to." She turned to face him, her gaze steady, the resolve in her voice unwavering. "Things were falling apart at home. I had to choose what was best for me, best for you or best for everyone else." Jean shot back, his emotions flaring. "You didn't even say goodbye." Her jaw tightened, a subtle sign that the hurt had rooted deep. "I didn't know how. I thought if I didn't say it, it would be real." The sincerity of her words sent a pang through him, a reflection of shared regrets flickering in their eyes. Jean leaned back on his hands, frustration melding with longing. The soft grass brushed against his palms, grounding him momentarily. It was really hard for me, you know. I never really moved on. He looked away, feeling the weight of his confession sink into the space between them. The vibrant colors around him seemed to blur momentarily, eclipsed by the gray of old wounds. Neecy shifted closer, the distance between them shrinking like a secret. I didn't either, she admitted, her voice quivering just enough to fracture Jean's defenses. I thought about you at night, when the world was quiet. I dreamed of what could have been. Those words hung in the air, vibrant yet tinged with melancholy, like a painting touched by too much shadow. Jean turned to meet her gaze, sensing the truth that pulsed in the spaces they occupied. What do we do with all this now? Another pause, heavy and dense, stretched between them. Neecy drew a shaky breath, her eyes sparkling but hinting at buried fears. We need to confront it. The past isn't going away. Confront our pain or our love. Jean's voice softened, a bridge opening between them, revealing the vulnerability they had both cloaked in humor and bravado. A flicker of something hope danced in Neecy's eyes. Both, maybe. With that, she reached out, her fingers brushing lightly against his, a tentative connection igniting like a spark among dry kindling. Their eyes locked, a powerful current zipping overhead, intertwining past and present, as laughter and heartache merged into an unspoken acknowledgement of what they could still build. Let's start by being honest, Neecy said, her voice barely above a whisper, filled with the richness of uncharted territory. Jean nodded silently, knowing that the road ahead would demand more than they had once imagined. Then you need to first promise me one thing, he said, his heart drumming a rhythm of hope and possibility. What? Never to disappear again. The earnest plea hung in the air as they both considered the consequences of their unyielding past, an invitation to rewrite their story, one fragile thread at a time. Scene 16, Professional Setbacks. Neecy stood by the window, the late afternoon sun casting a warm glow across her face. She twisted a strand of her curly hair around her finger, eyes trained on the city below, lost in thought. The faint murmur of traffic contrasted sharply with the silence of the room. Why does it feel like I'm always just a step behind? She finally blurted out, not turning to face Jean, who sat across the small living room on an aging couch, scrolling aimlessly through his phone. Maybe you're pushing too hard, Jean replied, his voice soft but laced with concern. Neecy let out a huff of frustration, turning to face him, her arms folding across her chest. That doesn't help, Jean. I mean, I can't even get my projects approved. It's like I'm invisible. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, catching her gaze with earnest eyes. That's not true. You're not invisible to me. A flicker of warmth sparked between them. The corners of Neecy's mouth quirked up, but her expression quickly shifted back to something more serious. You're just saying that because you care. It doesn't change the fact that I feel like I'm drowning at work, she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. Jean took a moment, scanning the room as if seeking a way to bridge the distance that was creeping between them. The walls, painted a calming blue, suddenly felt too close. You know, sometimes it takes a while for people to recognize how brilliant you are. Brilliant? Neecy raised an eyebrow, that playful demeanor of hers surfacing briefly. Come on, have you been talking to my boss? No, I'm serious. He leaned back, hands splayed on the couch beside him. If they can't see it, it's their loss. You're not meant to fit into their box. A beat of silence followed as Neecy's lips parted to respond, but she hesitated, letting his words hang in the air. Outside, a car honked, briefly breaking the heavy atmosphere before another quiet settled in. She sighed, her reflection visible in the window, a daughter of dreams and doubts, layered like the city she longed to escape and embrace all at once. I thought I'd be further along, that I could balance everything, work, love, life, but I just feel scattered. Maybe you need to let some things go, he suggested, his voice steady despite the vulnerability in her eyes. You could start small, take a break from the projects you're struggling with, and focus on the ones that inspire you. Like what? Rethinking my entire career plan over coffee with a friend? She shot back, though a small smile broke through her frustration. Maybe coffee with you, though. But the laughter fluttered away as quickly as it came, overshadowed by the reality of their tangled lives. Just then, the distant clatter of pots and pans came from the adjacent apartment, reminding Jean of the chaos that often encircled them. I mean, brainstorming could be a start. You're an artist at heart, Neecy. Remember the times you'd lock yourself in your studio and lose track of time? Yeah, I also remember how that ended, she replied, a shadow passing over her expression, with a lot of empty canvases and frustrated nights. I think those canvases were waiting for the right moment, he countered gently. Just like us. In a heartbeat, the air around them shifted, thickening with unspoken emotion. Jean, she began, only for her phone to buzz, breaking the fragile moment. She glanced at the message, her face falling slightly. Work again, just when I thought I had a quiet moment. Jean could see the frustration flaring in her eyes. You've got this, Neecy. Whatever it is, together we can tackle it. Together, she repeated softly, as if mulling it over, the thought hanging like a recently unearthed seed, bearing the promise of new growth. She could feel the warmth radiating from him, a reassurance that wrapped around her like an old, cherished blanket. But doubt still flickered at the back of her mind, like that damned blinking cursor on her computer screen. Neecy made her way back to the couch, but instead of sitting next to him, she settled across from him, an unexpected space between them that seemed both comfortable and charged with potential. Jean, do you really think I'm meant for more? That I could make a mark? Absolutely, he affirmed, sincerity pouring from each word. You light up every room, Neecy. It's just about owning that light. Maybe I need to find a way through this darkness first, she replied softly. Their eyes locked, a moment fleeting, yet full of meaning. The sun dipped lower outside, shadows dancing across their faces, but for Neecy, it felt like time had been suspended, an unmoored boat ready to set sail toward uncharted waters. I won't let you forget your worth, he whispered, the promise resonating deep, filling the spaces between their unspoken fears and hopes. As the last rays of sunshine spilled into the room, casting a warm hue around them, Neecy felt the weight of her setbacks transform into something new, a flickering ember of courage igniting in the raw vulnerability of the moment. Scene 17. Friends and Foes. The midday sun draped the courtyard in a golden hue, laced through the boughs of a low-hanging tree that swayed gently in the breeze. Neecy McKinney sat on a weathered bench, her fingers nervously twisting the edge of her sun-faded dress. The laughter of children echoed in the distance, mingling with the occasional chirp of sparrows feasting nearby. Yet a heaviness hung in the air, as tangible as the heat. Neecy glanced toward the entrance of the courtyard, anxiously scanning for the familiar silhouette of Jean Fabian. Memories of their past loomed in her mind, moments stolen away by time, while a flutter of longing mixed with apprehension settled in her chest. Across the courtyard, her group of friends, Chandra, Yvette, and Malcolm, clustered close, their faces shadowed with concern. Chandra, with her striking green eyes, leaned in. Her voice was a whisper, yet it sliced through the air with urgency. Are you sure about this, Neecy? You know how Jean can be. Yvette, arms crossed defensively, added, He wasn't exactly a saint back then. What makes you think he's changed? Malcolm, pushing his glasses up on his nose, nodded in agreement. People don't often change, Neecy. It's all about the core of who they are. The sunlight highlighted the determination in Neecy's features. You don't know him like I do. He was hurt by things none of you understand. She could feel the warmth of her own words, the anger and sadness that colored her voice. I need to give him a chance, to give us a chance to explore if this, she hesitated, whatever this is means something. Chandra stepped closer, her expression softening. But what if it doesn't? What if he hurts you again? You've come so far. You've built a life here. Why do you all think I can't manage both? Neecy interrupted sharply, her emotions bubbling up unbidden. Why do you think it always has to be one or the other? As if summoned, Jean appeared, strolling through the courtyard with an effusive grin. His dark skin glistened under the sun, his laughter mingling with the summer breeze. Neecy felt her heart race, the magnetic pull of nostalgia as he waved at her, but the warmth of that moment faded as she noticed her friend's wary glances. Hey, everyone, Jean shouted, his voice bright and open, but tinged with a nervousness that only Neecy could sense. He had a knack for masking his insecurities with humor, an armor he wore well. Chandra and Yvette exchanged glances filled with disapproval. We're not sure you're ready for this, Jean, Yvette said shortly, hostility lacing her tone. Jean's smile dimmed but didn't disappear. Ready for what? Just to hang out again? He shifted awkwardly, sensing the charged atmosphere. Malcolm, ever the cautious observer, leaned back, scrutinizing Jean. That's the thing, isn't it? You just hanging out doesn't exactly align with Niecey's long-term happiness. His voice was steady, bolstered by concern. Neecy felt the flush rise to her cheeks, a mix of indignation and embarrassment. Can you stop treating me like I'm fragile? She snapped, locking eyes with each of them. I'm not a porcelain doll. I can make my own choices. Jean stepped further into the circle, instinctively trying to diffuse the tension. Look, I get it. You don't know me now, but I've changed. He hesitated, vulnerability creeping into his tone. I didn't stop thinking about Neecy, not for a single day in all these years. Neecy's breath caught, the weight of his admission resonating deep within her, igniting both hope and uncertainty. The air thickened around them, stifling and electric. She could sense the simultaneous protective instincts of her friends, driven by love and fear. Chandra pursed her lips, the tension pulling her brows taut. But Jean, that's just talk. Show us you've changed. Jean's gaze flickered, taking in Neecy's expression, a mix of hope and trepidation. I'm willing to try, he declared, his voice softening. Then, as if the air shifted, he directed his attention towards Neecy. But are you? The question floated in the air, a silent challenge tinged with longing. Neecy felt every fragment of her past colliding with the present, the warmth of summer filling the gaps. Could she balance this, her past, her ambitions, and her emotions? I want to try, too, she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. The courtyard fell silent as the group stood on the precipice of a monumental decision. Friendship or love? And in that moment the path ahead felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Scene 18, a test of commitment. The clink of silverware against porcelain echoed through the warmly lit dining room, where laughter and conversation mingled in the air thick with the aroma of her mother's famous gumbo. Out the window, a gentle rain pitter-pattered against the glass, casting a soft glow that flickered as the kitchen lights dimmed. Do you think Jean will come through for you this time? Miranda leaned in, her voice a mixture of concern and mischief, as she reached for the last piece of cornbread. Neecy felt the weight of her gaze sharpen, like a lightning bolt cutting through the haze of laughter. I mean, it's been how long? 12 years? Neecy stirred her gumbo, feeling the heat rising in her cheeks. Years don't mean a thing if he's the one, she muttered, forcing a smile while stirring, revealing a thin veneer over her uncertainty. Oh, darling, you say that now, but can you really trust him? Miranda pressed, her playful tone tinged with an edge of genuine apprehension. People don't change. They just wear new masks. Across the table, Marissa snorted, her curly hair bouncing as she chimed in. Exactly. Remember that time he left you for that summer gig in Miami? Left you high and dry. The laughter from around the table mixed with Marissa's dismissive tone, crashing against Neecy's innate desire to defend Jean. Neecy's fork clattered against her plate, the sound almost drowned in the light-hearted banter of the other guests. No one's perfect, she said, her voice more assertive than she felt, searching her friend's eyes for solidarity. People grow. They make mistakes. Yeah, but some mistakes are pretty big, Miranda said, arching a brow. What if he's still the same guy? This isn't just about you. It's about your future, Neecy. A gust of wind rattled the window panes, amplifying the tension that seemed to coil in the room, a slow patch of bristling doubt echoing each of Miranda's words. Why are we still talking about him? Marissa's tone shifted, a smirk confirming she reveled in the chaos, her carefree laughter like sprinkles over an uncomfortable truth. You could find someone who's with you. A solid path instead of someone still figuring it out. Neecy looked at her plate for a moment, the vibrant colors in her gumbo numbing her heart's beating rhythm. With a thoughtful pause, she lifted her gaze. And yet, she said slowly, there's a pull that I can't shake. She felt the weight of their skepticism hovering in the air, causing ripples in her once steadfast resolve. Elsewhere in the room, Jean waited just outside the door, shadows dancing when he caught a glimpse of Neecy through the warmly lit window. The laughter felt distant but palpable, just like the days he kept replaying in his mind memories, laced with hope and an ache he couldn't ignore. He rubbed the back of his neck, his smile fading. The choice between past and present twisted itself around him like the steamy scent of gumbo wafting through the air. Inside, the conversation turned to their high school days, and pieces of stories wrapped themselves around nostalgia. "You know, when you danced at the talent show," Marissa started, "that dress was something else. I've never seen so much taffeta in one room." A soft chuckle escaped Neecy, the laughter a welcome reprieve, "only because I lost a bet to you." Miranda leaned back, arms crossed, still playing the cautious friend. "So maybe you need a little more taffeta in your life?" "Something more stable." The rain intensified, each drop drumming a new rhythm against the window. "Stability is overrated," Neecy shot back, her bravado tinged with uncertainty. "I want someone who challenges me." "And what's Jean challenging you to do?" Miranda asked, a mixture of teasing and genuine concern brightening her eyes. Neecy's mouth tightened, her frustration swelled. "I'm not right for anyone but him," she snapped, then softened at the weight of that confession. Before Miranda could respond, another gust of wind rattled the glass, sending a chill through the room. The air crackled with tension, laughter faltering, as they all sensed the storm brewing within and without. As the laughter faded and the ambience shifted, Neecy felt the stirrings of doubt deepening. Could Jean truly meet the expectations of a future she could not fully grasp? Across the table, a shared silence lingered, where dreams and fears collided. Yet from the corner of her eye, she caught a fleeting glimpse of Jean stepping fully into view. His presence felt electric, an unspoken connection that challenged her rising tide of uncertainty. Miranda's voice cut through the stillness, lilting with faux optimism. "You'll see us rooting for you, even if it's wearing taffeta." Neecy inhaled sharply, the laugh mingling with longing. "I just hope I don't trip on my way to find him." Confidence strained in that moment, but as she caught Jean's gaze, the shout of thunder outside seemed to rumble a newfound promise within her heart. Scene 19, Fighting Inadequacy. The aroma of spiced coffee hung faintly in the air, mingled with the crisp, slightly damp scent of fresh paint. Jean leaned back in his chair, its wooden legs creaking beneath him as he fiddled with his mug. The cafe was subdued, scattered with patrons wrapped in their own worlds, yet the atmosphere buzzed with an unvoiced energy. He caught Neecy's eye across the small table. "Really? That's how you got the grant?" Jean asked, struggling to mask the tension woven into his tone. Neecy's eyes sparkled, a vibrant green that caught the ambient light perfectly. But his heart sank with a familiar weight. "Yeah, it was incredible. They loved my idea about integrating art therapy into schools. Kids need a space to express themselves, and it's funded." Her voice had that infectious enthusiasm, and for a moment, Jean found himself smiling at her joy, but then a dark thought crept in. "How could they say no to you?" He replied, his voice almost sardonic. Layers of resentment dripped from his words, his pulse quickening. "You've always been the golden girl." Neecy's smile faltered, just for a moment, before her brows knitted in confusion. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means that you're too good for this place, for this life." He waved a hand around the cafe, the painted walls feeling too close, somehow stifling. "And I'm stuck in the same old patterns, wondering when something's going to change." The laughter in her eyes shifted to a storm cloud. "Are you really doing this right now?" "There it is again," Jean shot back, frustration simmering just below the surface. "You're always up and I'm always down. I can't keep up." "That's not true," Neecy shot back, her voice rising slightly. "You know I'm just trying." "Trying to what? Save the world?" Jean interrupted, emotion bursting forth like a geyser. "While I'm here working ridiculous hours at some tech job that doesn't mean anything?" Neecy inhaled deeply, her chest rising as if to carry her forward against the turbulence of his words. "Jean, I never asked you to. You never had to. It's like you danced out of my reach, and I'm just here." His voice cracked, an unexpected vulnerability surfacing through the cracks of bravado. Neecy's expression softened. She leaned in, her hands brushing the table with purpose. "Jean, I didn't choose to separate us. I was scared. I am scared. The only reason I pushed forward is that I thought you would find something bigger for yourself." Their eyes locked in a shared moment of silence, the air between them charged. Across the cafe, seated at a table at the far end, Malik observed their exchange. a slice of his blueberry pastry dangling precariously between his fingers. He leaned slightly closer to Sylvia, who was absorbed in her sketchbook, drawing the world around them with swift, confident strokes. "Look at them," Mullock whispered, tilting his chin toward Jean and Neecy. "A classic case of miscommunication. You think it's about work when it's really about wanting to be seen." Sylvia smiled knowingly, her pencil sweeping gracefully across the page. "Law always feels like a tangled web when pride gets in the way." "Or when one person feels like they're not enough," Mullock replied, casting another glance at Jean, who was now sitting rigidly, a wall building around him once again. Back at the table, Neecy's soft voice broke through the fog of Jean's insecurities. "I never stopped believing in you. You are enough." "It never feels like it," Jean whispered, his emotional fortress teetering. "When you talk about what you've achieved, I just see the chasm between us. It's all-consuming." Neecy hesitated, searching his eyes. "You can take a leap, Jean. You don't have to be grounded to the past. We're both still growing." Jean's lips trembled, wrestling with the truth of her words. "And what if I take that leap and fall?" Neecy leaned in closer, her voice a soft cocoon. "Then I'll be there to catch you." An unsteady breath escaped him, and he felt the tension begin to ebb. The laughter and warmth of the cafe grew more pronounced, wrapping around them like comforting arms. A chuckle slipped from Jean, unexpected and light. "Catching me? You're not exactly known for your strong arms." Neecy grinned, the spark returning. "I've been lifting a lot of heavy canvases and emotional baggage lately. Don't underestimate me." Jean's smile blossomed, the weight of inadequacy lifting just enough for hope to creep back in. "Okay," he said, the resolve forming anew. "Then catch me." The moment lingered, suspended between them. In the quiet hum of the cafe, they both found the courage to step into the unknown. Scene 20. Moments of reflection. The warm, golden hues of a setting sun bathe the small cafe in an inviting glow as Neecy McKinney sits alone at a rickety wooden table. The walls, adorned with eclectic art and photographs of artists long gone, resonate with a sense of history and nostalgia. The ceramic mug cradled in her hands is cool now, but the aroma of rich coffee lingers, mingling with the faint scent of freshly baked pastries wafting from the kitchen. Outside, the sounds of laughter and chatter flicker like a distant melody, weaving through her thoughts as she stares out the window, tracing the outline of clouds drifting lazily across the sky. Unbidden, memories of Jean swirl in her mind, his deep laughter echoing in the halls of their high school, his hopeful dreams glimmering just beyond reach. But like a raindrop on a still pond, the thought of him ripples through her heart, stirring confusion and longing. "What on earth would life have been like if we'd made it through?" she murmurs softly, her voice swallowed by the ambient noise. Across the cafe, Lila James is nursing her own bittersweet reflections. She peers over her laptop, fully invested in what she's trying to write, but distracted by Neecy's contemplative mood. Lila's thoughts are flickering between worry and admiration. Neecy had always been the free spirit, the one who dared to dream. But watching her now lost in thought, the weight of her past pressing heavily on her, Lila can't help but feel a pang of concern. "Hey, niece," Lila calls out, slipping her laptop aside as she scoots closer. "You okay? You've looked like you're a million miles away." Neecy blinks, shaking herself from her reverie. "Oh, just thinking. You are always so perceptive." She manages a weak smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. "More like I'm curious. You've been looking at that view as if you're waiting for a ghost to appear. What's got you tangled up?" Lila leans in, her voice lowered, encouraging openness without judgment. Neecy sighs, the weight of words heavy on her tongue. "I was just thinking about everything, all those chances I could have taken, paths I could have walked if I hadn't been so afraid. Like that moment with Jean, right before it all fell apart." "Did you ever tell him how you felt? I mean, now that you're here," Lila asks softly. "You didn't just lose a friend, you lost a soulmate." "Maybe I was scared," Neecy admits, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if we fell apart again? What if I can't balance love and my career?" "Life is messy, niece. Do you want to regret not trying at least?" Lila counters, her eyes burning with certitude. Besides, from what I know of Jean, he was always ready to take that leap. But the vulnerability in Neecy's gaze flickers with doubt. What if he's moved on? What if this fantasy I built up in my head isn't real? She glances away, tracing the scuffed edge of the table, yet unable to resist the magnetic pull of Lila's keen observation. Who cares? Lila shoots back, a teasing grin breaking through. It's not like he's a one-hit wonder. Get your papers in order and find out. You'll never know unless you ask him. And if he says no, her voice drops conspiratorially, we'll celebrate your glorious, dramatic failure over cocktails. Neecy laughs, the sound a balm for her tangled thoughts. You really know how to cheer a girl up. Only when she's an emotional disaster, Lila quips. But seriously, life's too short for all this what-if nonsense. You deserve to find out if he feels anything still. Just then, the cafe door swings open, sending a rush of cold autumn air swirling around them. Neecy's heart skips a beat as her gaze drifts across the threshold. There stands Jean Fabian, a shadow of the boy she once knew, yet somehow familiar. His presence sends electrifying warmth through her, igniting the dormant fragments of her heart. As their eyes lock, tension hangs in the air like a thick fog enveloping the cafe. Speak of the devil, Lila whispers, breaking the spell. Neecy's heart races, the tumult of emotions bubbling beneath the surface. As Jean walks toward her, Neecy feels the weight of the years between them, their shared laughter, their ghostly argument, and the fragility of their dream ready to unravel or mend hovering just within reach. Niece, he breathes, and in that moment, a kaleidoscope of memories floods her senses, the unspoken truths hanging heavy in the silence. Jean, she replies, heart pounding against her ribcage, preparing for a conversation that could either bind them closer or sever whatever strands of hope still held them together. Scene 21. Unexpected escapade. As the afternoon sun dipped toward the horizon, casting golden light through the scattered leaves, Neecy leaned against her car, an old Pontiac that had seen better days, its once vibrant red now dulled by sun and time. The faint hum of cicadas filled the air, a soft chorus that acted as a backdrop to her racing thoughts. This wasn't supposed to happen, was it? She murmured to herself, only half aware of the weight of her past pressing down on her like the humid air. Jean was a few steps behind, shuffling with an equal mix of excitement and hesitation etched into his features. He glanced at her, his brow furrowed slightly. "What's that?" Neecy shook her head, attempting to dismiss the swell of emotion that caught in her throat. "Nothing, just the day is beautiful." She ran her fingers through her curls, watching as the sunlight caught in the strands, illuminating the warmth she had always admired in him. "Yeah," Jean replied, crossing his arms, the tension in his stance betraying his eagerness. "I can't believe we're actually doing this, a spontaneous road trip." She laughed, the sound bubbling from her lips like soda fizzing over. "Spontaneous? I thought you had a plan." A smirk tugged at the corners of his mouth. Plans can be overrated. As Neecy turned back to the car, she caught a glimpse of their reflections in the dusty window, a silhouette of youth and hope tangled together, maybe too closely. Their laughter echoed faintly back at them, a call to something deeper, something still unspoken. The engine sputtered as she turned the key, the sound vibrating through the summer air. "Remember how we used to imagine just driving off to nowhere?" she asked as the Pontiac roared to life. "Yeah, but we never meant it," he quipped, but his eyes sparkled with a knowing glint. "We were just kids thinking about the lives we couldn't have." And for a moment, the silence that ensued felt heavy, as if the unshared weight of their past was swirling in the warmth between them. Together they configured their plan. The road unfolded ahead, known and unknown, sprinkled with adventure. As they pulled onto the highway, excitement pulsed through the air like electricity. Their surroundings blurred in a rush of vibrant colors. Fields of wildflowers whooshed past in waves of yellow and purple. Neecy turned the radio dial, classic rock filling the air. Jean bobbed his head, chuckling as she belted out the lyrics. "You've still got it," he teased, turning the volume up, the sound enveloping them like a warm hug. Amidst the laughter, Jean flung her a lingering glance, one laden with unvoiced thoughts. "Do you think we'll always be like this?" "What do you mean?" Neecy asked, intrigued. "That, every time we're together, it feels like it could go anywhere, like the road stretching out before us." "You're deep today," she teased lightly, but the sincerity in his eyes pulled at her heart. "I'd like to think we can create whatever we want, Jean." But there was something unsteady in the air, a tension that lingered like the scent of jasmine from a nearby field. Just as Jean was about to respond, the car lurched unexpectedly, the check engine light flickering wildly. Niecey's smile faded. "What's happening?" "I think it's telling us we might need to take a break." His laughter echoed, but it rang false, as if it were an attempt to mask the panic rising in his chest. Pulling over to the side of the road, they stepped out, the sunlight now a blinding judgment, challenging them to confront the uncharted territory of their renewed connection. They stood beside the car, a mix of embarrassment and adventure swirling around them. "So, what now?" Neecy asked, her heart racing, unsure if it was from the thrill of the road or the distance they had just crossed. "Let's just breathe," Jean suggested, taking a step closer. There was a tightening in the air, an undeniable longing, and as he looked down, his gaze lingered on her lips. In that still moment, time felt suspended. The world buzzed around them, yet neither one moved. "Can we just stop pretending that this isn't?" he began, but before he could finish, a sudden movement from behind the bushes startled them both. Neecy jumped, breaking the spell, as a deer leaped into the open field beyond, darting away with impressive grace. "Just a deer," Jean chuckled, and with that release of tension, the laughter flowed back, wrapping them in a fragile sense of normalcy. "Well, there's an unexpected change of plans," she joked, her heart still racing. "What do you think?" With a deeper breath, Jean faced her. "I wasn't kidding when I said I want this to go somewhere." Niecey's breath caught in her throat, and she glanced at the road ahead, knowing full well the chances that lay before them, vivid dreams threaded with the echoes of their past. "Then I guess we're just getting started." Scene 22, a choice to make. The late afternoon sun filtered through the thick canopy of trees in Eagle Creek Park, casting dapples of warm light on the ground below. A slight breeze rustled the leaves, carrying the scent of damp earth and blooming wildflowers. Neecy McKinney leaned against a gnarled oak, her fingers tracing the rough bark, feeling as if the tree itself were conveying its wisdom. Nearby, the laughter of children echoed, accompanied by the rhythmic chirping of cicadas, a stark reminder of carefree youth she now found slipping through her fingers. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, pulling her from her thoughts. She hesitated before pulling it out, glancing at the screen, a message from Jean. The last few months had been a whirlpool, the reunion igniting long-buried feelings and lingering doubts. "Neecy, I can't stop thinking about you. Are we still on for tonight?" She felt her heart race, thoughts of their previous evenings together swirling in her mind, each filled with a mixture of laughter and electric tension. Yet, in the pit of her stomach sat the heavy weight of a decision looming over her like a storm cloud. Just then, her best friend Samara arrived, her presence a burst of laughter and energy that felt like sun breaking through clouds. She flounced up with her usual flair, spinning in a dramatic twirl before resting her hands on her hips. "Neecy, you have to decide," Samara exclaimed, her voice full of passion. "The opportunity of a lifetime, a curator position in Seattle? Imagine where that could lead." Neecy adjusted her stance, crossing her arms tightly. "I know, but—" Her words faltered. The thought of leaving, of taking that step, danced tauntingly in her mind. "Don't butt me," Samara replied, unfazed. "This is about you, not him. Think of yourself for once." Neecy studied Samara's earnest expression, a fleeting pang of guilt twisting in her gut. She sighed, frustration bubbling just below the surface. "And what if I think of him? What then? What if we could make it work, Samara? I can't just throw that away." A flicker of her old self emerged, the girl who believed in love stories, in serendipitous moments. But could those dreams coexist with professional aspirations? "Ah!" Samara waved her hands dramatically, breaking the tension. "You're not throwing anything away. You're trying to build a future. You can't be everyone's Neecy without also being your own." Neecy felt the heat rise in her cheeks, internal conflict painting her expression in shades of doubt. "Maybe I don't want to just make a choice between career and love. What if I want both?" "Then fight for both," Samara encouraged, stepping closer, her eyes sparkling. "You can find a way to balance it. Plus, you can't let Jean hold you back, even if you care about him. Would he want that for you?" Just then, a familiar voice cut through the serene chaos of her thoughts. Jean sauntered into view, hands stuffed in the pockets of his denim jacket. the afternoon sun catching the warm caramel hue of his skin. The tension between them crackled, electrifying the air. "Hey, I was wondering if you got my message," he said, his casual demeanor masking the hint of uncertainty lurking just below the surface. Neecy gulped, her heart both leaping and sinking all at once. I was thinking we could talk. About us," he added quietly, his eyes searching hers, filled with vulnerability that made her pulse quicken. "Right, about us and other things," Neecy murmured, shifting her gaze towards Samara, who was suddenly far too invested in a nearby wildflower, avoiding the heavy air thickening with expectations. Jean stepped closer, the warmth radiating from him enveloping her, pulling her back into the moment. "You seem distant. Is everything all right?" The honesty in his voice tugged at her heartstrings, propelling her emotions into the limelight. Their eyes locked, and for a heartbeat, everything outside of their connection faded away. Neecy hesitated, the weight of her choice pressing against her chest. How could she explain the tumult swirling inside, her dreams battling her heart? "Jean," she began softly, "I need to figure out what I want, all of it. The job, the love, everything." His gaze softened, yet remained unwavering. "We can face it together, you know? You don't have to choose one over the other." She hoped he was right. The laughter of nearby children faded into the background, replaced by the pounding of her heartbeat. "I wish it were that easy," she said, vulnerability leaking through. Jean reached out, brushing a stray curl from her cheek, a gesture filled with a warmth that ignited something deep within her. Nothing worthwhile ever is. As they stood there, suspended in their moment, the evening sun dipped lower, casting long shadows that intertwined with the hope and uncertainty blooming between them. Yet within her a question burgeoned. Was love ever as simple as choosing? Scene 23. Pursuing dreams together. The vibrant buzz of the coffee shop enveloped Jean and Neecy as the afternoon sun poured through the large dusty windows. The rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingled with the faint scent of cinnamon pastries, filling the air with warmth. Each table, decorated with mismatched mugs and weathered wooden tabletops, had its own story, each a canvas of laughter and whispered secrets. Outside, a gentle breeze rustled the trees, casting playful shadows that danced against the worn floorboards beneath their feet. Jean tapped the table nervously, a rhythm that matched the muted drum of his heart, while Neecy animatedly unfolded her dreams. Her dark curls framed a face alight with passion. "I can see it, Jean. A gallery of my paintings. A space where people come together, where art connects souls." He smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "You deserve that, Neecy. Every brushstroke is a part of you, a story waiting to be told." The light danced in her eyes, invigorating his spirit. But beneath the surface, a pang of fear slithered through him, a worry that her ambitions could lead her far away from him, again. Pausing thoughtfully, she bit her lip, her gaze drifting to the window. "What about you? What's your dream?" Jean hesitated, the shadow of his own aspirations lurking behind the facade he usually wore so easily. "I've always thought of writing. I want to tell stories, share perspectives. But," he took a deep breath, the words forming slowly, "I can't imagine throwing them out into the world." Neecy leaned in closer, her fingers brushing against his hand. "Jean, you've got to. Your voice matters. You just need to believe in it as much as I believe in you." The warmth of her touch sent a shiver through him, igniting a spark of hope. Amid their conversation, nearby laughter erupted from a group of friends, a tapestry of vibrant camaraderie. Their voices seeped into the air, painting a backdrop of community. Carla, a spirited barista with bright blue hair, served them with exaggerated flair. "One dreamer duo at a time, folks. Or are we dreaming too big today?" Jean smirked. "Not too big, just the right size." He exchanged glances with Neecy, who rolled her eyes playfully, the familiar banter settling like an old, comfortable blanket. "I should start selling neon signs," Carla joked, "for people desperate for validation." She winked, nudging Jean. Neecy laughed, but there was a weight to her smile, an unspoken acknowledgement of vulnerability hidden beneath. Jean noticed. "Neecy, it's okay to be scared," I getted softly, seeking to bridge the gap that hesitated between them. "Just take it step by step. I'll be right here, cheering you on." For a moment silence enveloped them, save for the ambient clatter of dishes and the soft jazz playing in the background. Their eyes locked, the world around them fading away as the air thickened with unspoken words. Niecey's breath hitched. You really mean that? Absolutely, I'll adapt to your dreams. We can pursue them together. His voice surged with conviction, a promise laced between every syllable. Tension crackled in the air as their faces drew closer, the space between them charged with a magnetic pull. They could almost feel the warmth radiating from one another, each heartbeat amplifying the unexplainable connection that tied them together. As Neecy brushed a rogue curl behind her ear, Jean leaned in, heart racing, and for one timeless moment he captured the essence of everything that had been unspoken for too long. Their lips met in a feather-light kiss, soft and sweet, echoing their shared history and anticipation of what could be, a promise held within the kiss, both cautious and desperate. The world outside continued to whirl by, but within that instant, time stood still, weaving together two souls that had once been irrevocably parted. And as the lingering taste of cinnamon lingered on their lips, they could finally breathe in the possibility of a future shared, without fear. Together, Jean whispered, breaking the silence with a soft uncertainty, yet full of hope, as the lingering warmth of the moment wrapped around them like a cherished memory waiting to unfold. Scene 24, a heartfelt discussion. The kitchen was filled with the lingering sweetness of freshly baked cornbread, golden edges crisp to perfection. Jean stood at the counter, a whisk in hand, futilely attempting to batter the tangled thoughts swirling in his mind. The sun dipped low outside, casting an amber glow that enveloped the room, but the warmth did little to chase away his tightening chest. Neecy entered, a breath of fresh energy, her vibrant floral dress twirling around her legs. She pulled her hair back, the sunlight catching in soft curls. Is that your secret recipe? Because it smells amazing. Only the finest culinary expertise, Jean replied, attempting a light laugh, but it sounded hollow even to him. He turned back to the mixing bowl, his hands steadying themselves by focusing on the task. As she leaned against the counter, the weight of her gaze settled on him, charged with a tension neither could ignore. What's really going on, Jean? He sighed, putting the whisk down with a clatter that echoed against the soft hum of the world outside. Children playing, laughter ringing. Do you ever feel like we're walking on this tightrope, trying not to fall? Every day. She stepped closer, her fingers grazing the edge of the counter. But we don't have to be perfect. I don't want us to be some throwback to what we had without knowing if it'll hold this time. Jean turned to her then, the sardonic mask slipping. We only get one shot at happiness, right? But what if it's a different kind? What if this is just a chance to mess it all up again? She interrupted, frustration heating her words. Just then, the wind outside intensified, rattling the window panes as if nature were manifesting their internal struggle. Jean glanced toward the window as raindrops began to streak the glass, blurring the last rays of sunlight spilling into the room. Great, a storm, he murmured. More like a reflection of our lives, Neecy replied, folding her arms across her chest. We were teenagers then, Jean. Now, we're adults with baggage. He turned back, leaning against the counter, trying to gather his brave face while doubt flickered behind his eyes. Yeah, but I still want to be here, Neecy. You know that. I have this fear, she admitted softly, her voice trembling like the patter of rain against the roof. Fear that we'll never quite find our way back, that I'll lose you all over again. Jean's expression softened. You're not going to lose me. I'm right here. The earnestness in his voice was almost electric, an invitation to lean in to share the truth. Neecy met his gaze, the air thick with unspoken connection. But what if I'm not enough? She whispered, her vulnerability peeling layers off her bravado. Enough. Jean scoffed lightly, his heart racing at her admission. Neecy, you've always been more than enough. You're the dreamer when I'm too grounded. You took my hand then, and every moment since. I still think of the life we almost had, all the laughs and plans. And what about now? Life is louder, expectations heavier, she pressed, stepping even closer, buoyed by his honesty. The tension was palpable, a crackling energy that had them both leaning toward something deeper. The throbbing rain drummed against the window, a soft punctuation to their dilemma. Jean sighed, trying to bridge the divide between their fears. Yet here we are, still wanting to pick up the pieces to see if it fits. As silence enveloped them, the kitchen shifted. The comforting scent of cornbread somehow became a taste of nostalgia mixed with hope. "When I think about our future," Neecy said, breaking the stillness, "I get terrified about commitment." "Me too," Jean admitted, the honesty spilling over. "Responsibilities, past mistakes, sometimes it feels insurmountable." "But what if we just take it day by day?" she suggested, a glimmer of resolve lighting her features. "Together. No grand expectations. Just you and me." "Day by day," he echoed, a smile starting to pull at his lips, their shared laughter thread slowly winding back through the heavy emotional weight. "You're all I think about, Jean," Neecy continued, the raindrops intensifying like her heartbeat. "If we can just talk through it, we might figure it out." His heart swelled as he reached out, fingers brushing hers. "And if we trip along the way? Then we'll hold each other up," Neecy said with a warmth that melted some of the unease in Jean's chest. "Maybe it'll be beautiful chaos. Just like cornbread and cheddar," he quipped, and they both laughed, the tension fleeting but still palpable in the air, brimming with something new. With the storm outside crashing louder, they both felt the storm inside slowly approaching calm. The future loomed, uncertain but enticing, and beneath the swirling shadows of doubt, a flicker of hope remained. Scene 25. Revealing the truth. The late afternoon sun draped itself over the park where Neecy and Jean sat on a weather-worn bench, shared laughter mingling with the rustling leaves. The faint smell of popcorn wafted in from a nearby summer fair, while children squealed in delight, running through shadows cast by tall, waving grass. Yet, amidst the joy that enveloped them, a thick tension simmered just beneath the surface. "Do you think love is supposed to hurt?" Neecy asked, her voice wavering slightly, betraying a hint of vulnerability as she leaned forward, her fingers drumming against her knee. She avoided his gaze, staring at the faded wood beneath them, hoping the question would instigate honesty. Jean's jaw clenched slightly, his merriment subdued. "I think it shouldn't. But maybe it does because we don't know how to be honest with ourselves." He glanced at her, a silent challenge hanging in the air like a droplet poised to fall. Neecy slowly met his gaze, a spark igniting as her brown eyes searched his. She could feel the warmth of his presence, the way he filled the space between them with both comfort and conflict. "There's just so much I'm scared of, Jean. I don't want to end up like my parents," she confessed, her voice steadying as her breath caught. "They loved hard but broke harder. It's just, what if I can't do it? What if I can't stay?" Jean leaned in, his brow furrowing as he contemplated her confession. "Neecy, we all have scars," he said, his voice softening, "but they don't define us." He hesitated, summoning the courage he often hid behind jokes. I've never truly moved on from you." Her heart raced. The truth felt like a weight. It both grounded and elated her. He was there, bearing his soul, yet a deep-seated fear lingered within her of not being enough, of falling into familiar patterns. "So we just pretend everything is okay? Just like that?" she challenged, even as she felt the words slip through trembling lips. "No," Jean replied, leaning closer, their knees brushing against each other. "We fight for it, for what we want, even if it hurts." A sudden breeze wrapped around them, sending her hair fluttering, and the moment hung in the air tangible and fragile. It was a moment reminiscent of their teenage encounters, filled with anxious anticipation, yet unmistakably new. Could they really confront the weight of their missed chances now? "I'm a mess, Jean," she finally admitted, the clarity of her voice creeping in. "I hide behind dreams that feel out of reach. What if I can't balance this?" "You're brilliant. You can do both," he said, his confidence dispelling her doubts. "We can find a way. Together." Neecy studied him, her breath hitching as a tingle sparked along her spine. She could hardly fathom the connection pulsating between them, the past and present colliding with a potent tension she hadn't felt in years. "But I'm terrified," she whispered. Jean's features softened, and he reached out, his thumb brushing her knuckles gently. It felt as though time folded inward, the world receding around them, leaving only the echo of their racing hearts. "So am I." He closed the distance, the hesitance that lingered evaporating under the weight of shared vulnerability. "But that's where love begins, right?" Their gazes locked, a kaleidoscope of unspoken hopes and dreams swirling between them. Jean leaned in, and for a moment the world faded, a canvas where only their fears and desires painted fervent strokes. The scent of her perfume mingled with the air, bringing warmth creeping up his skin. As their lips finally met, a softness enveloped them. It was more than a kiss. It was a merging of past hurt and future promise. The reluctance melted away, passion igniting a connection that felt both familiar and new. But just as they began to lose themselves in the moment, the cacophony of laughter and music from the fair broke through, jolting them back to reality. They pulled apart, breathless, eyes wide in realization, as a rush of uncertainty lingered in the air. "Maybe love is supposed to hurt a little," Neecy murmured, a half-smile resurfacing. "But it can also heal." "Neecy," Jean said, his voice steady, even as his heart raced. "Together, then, we fight this." And as that promise hung between them, a new journey unfurling beneath the quiet of the park, Neecy knew they had taken the first step toward something profound, something beautifully fractured but resolutely hopeful. Scene 26, Crossroads of Choices. The sun dipped low, casting an amber halo over the small cafe where Neecy sat, stirring her cold coffee with absent zeal. Jean's laughter from the barista's counter, a bright, unguarded sound, pulled her gaze. He was joking with Malik, who was mid-order. The warmth of the cafe contrasted sharply with the chill of Neecy's decision weighing heavily in her mind. "Are you really considering it?" Jean's voice floated back to her. He approached, eyes flickering with concern hidden beneath a playful facade. "It's a really good opportunity, Jean," Neecy replied, trying to marshal the tremor in her voice. "I can't just let it go." "But in Connecticut, you'd be 3 hours away." There was a pause, as if the distance gnawed at him, anything but pleasant. She took a deep breath, swirling the remnants of her coffee. "What if I never get a chance like this again? This could be my start." She met his gaze, fierce but faltering. "Your start, Neecy." Jean leaned closer, and the crowd faded into gently muted echoes. "But what about us and all the dreams we had?" The tension hung, thick and palpable. Neecy's heart raced. His words were both a reminder and a confirmation of fears she had been too afraid to voice. Across the cafe, Malik busied himself with a dish towel, occasionally stealing glances over, sensing the palpable weight of the conversation in the air. He couldn't help but chuckle quietly at the sight of Jean, furrowing his brow, fighting for his words. The cafe felt like a bubble of tension and history, every creak of the wooden floor beneath them, a reminder of the years they had spent together, learning, laughing, falling apart, and now, maybe, just maybe, finding their way back. "Jean," Neecy began, voice trembling like the ice that melted in her glass. "Do you realize how difficult it's been for me? The idea of leaving? It terrifies me. But this job could." "Change everything?" he interjected, voice hardening slightly. "Neecy, we can't keep running from what's right in front of us." "In front of us?" She leaned in, her eyes like storm clouds gathering intensity. "What's in front of us is uncertainty. You know I'm not good with this whole commitment thing." Jean recoiled slightly, a soft breath escaping him. "I thought we were past that. I thought we had something worth fighting for." A few tables away, Tamara, an older woman nursing her third glass of wine, carefully observed them through her colorful scarf. She had seen too many relationships stumble and crash at crossroads like this one, and there were moments in her life when she had found herself at a similar junction, wondering whether to leap or retreat. "So we push this away, then?" Jean asked, grief threaded through his levity. "You and I this. What if this opportunity is my chance?" Neecy's voice was firm, though her heart quaked beneath. She leaned back, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of the table. He paused, the air heavy between them as laughter and activities swirled about in the cafe. "Can't it be both? Can't you take the job and we figure this out together?" Neecy held his gaze, her resolve wavering at the depths of his sincerity. "I just don't want to be the reason you sacrifice something you want." "But what do I want?" He shifted closer. "What my life is here too." As if sensing the charged moment, Malik sauntered back, rubbing his hands together, feigning obliviousness. "So who's getting food? The dreamy artist or the mildly amusing jokester?" The tension broke like a fragile glass against the floor, splintering into 1,000 indecipherable emotions, swirling hues of affection and unspoken words. Neecy managed a laugh, a release, but Jean's expression was still serious, eyes steady, searching. She felt the knot in her stomach tighten. She could feel the corners of her heart melting like ice in warmth, And as they locked eyes, a quiet understanding passed silently between them, the stakes of their choices whispering beneath all the noise around them. Neecy exhaled, fighting back tears that threatened to muddy their laughter. Maybe I want both too. Jean's expression softened, and without a word, he reached across the table, finding her hand, warmth enveloping them both. For that fleeting moment, it wasn't just about decisions and paths untaken. It was about the flicker of hope that maybe they could navigate this together, after all. Scene 27. Teetering on the edge. The glaring sun hung low in the Seattle sky, drenching the warehouse district with a golden haze that felt heavier than warmth. The din of distant chainsaws cut through the quiet, mingling with the scent of freshly cut wood and moss. Jean leaned against the rugged brick wall outside Neecy's art studio, tapping his fingers against his thigh, the rasping sound echoing in the stillness. He watched her paint, her brush gliding across the canvas, a vibrant splash of colors erupting like her laughter. Neecy stepped back, eyed the work in progress, then flicked a glance toward him. The quick raise of one eyebrow prompted a teasing smile. "You could at least pretend to be impressed," she teased, her voice dancing on air. Jean straightened, trying to mask the clench in his jaw. "I'm impressed, just not ready to admit it. If you stop painting, I'm left without anything to stare at." His tone was light, but the weight of unspoken words hung between them. "You're just using me to distract yourself from your own dump of a life," she shot back, but her laughter chimed like wind chimes in the breeze, both playful and knowing. Nearby, Tasha and Malik ambled past, both sharing a warmth that came from year-long friendship. Tasha, a tall, willowy figure brimming with energy, tossed her dark curls over her shoulder. "You two look like you're debating the universe or something," she called out, a smirk gracing her lips. "Or should I just step in and throw some paint over the misunderstanding?" Jean couldn't suppress a grin. "Just a little existential life crisis, that's all." Neecy rolled her eyes. "Our romantic tension is enough, thanks. We don't need any more chaos." "Romantic tension? More like a poorly penned drama," Mullet called back, mischief beneath his words as they moved toward the nearby coffee shop, laughter trailing behind them. With a feigned gasp, Neecy turned to Jean. "Did you hear that? A poorly penned drama. How do you feel about your life being described as such?" "It gives me great pause," Jean said, stepping closer, closing the gap between them as he energetically waved his hands, a smile on his face that didn't quite reach his eyes. "But honestly, maybe you're right. Did I scare them off?" Neecy met his gaze, and for a suspended moment, the laughter faded as they both leaned into the quiet. The sunlight enveloped them, rendering the world outside momentarily dim. She could feel the warmth radiating from him, drawing her in like a moth to a flame. "Jean," she breathed, her thoughts pulling at her heart, but hesitance draped heavy on her shoulders. "I don't want us to be just some teenage, flickering flame." His expression softened as he traced the lines of her face with his eyes, memorizing every detail. But what if the flicker is just the beginning of something more? He took a breath, the tension in the air intensifying. "Can we just—" Before he could finish, the door swung open, and unsuspected chaos erupted. "Neecy, you are not going to believe what I just heard." Mara burst out, her wild curls bouncing as if defying gravity. "You're not still thinking about dipping back into the dating pool with Mr. Charismatic over here, are you?" Neecy's shoulders stiffened while Jean stepped back, a flicker of annoyance riding up his spine. Mara's eyes darted between them, playfully accusatory. "I mean, come on. You don't want to be the girl who returns, right? Think of the scandal." "Great, now I have to worry about scandal." Neecy shot back, irritation bubbling. "Can't a girl just paint without being dragged into gossip?" "I'm just saying, keep your heart guarded," Mara said, shrugging her shoulders in innocence, her eyes gleaming with mischief. "You know how these things unfold. 1 minute, you're painting and flirting, and the next, you're knee-deep in drama." Jean clenched his jaw tighter, feeling the edges of the world closing in, pushed down under the weight of friends and whispers. Glancing at Neecy, he saw her conflict and knew they stood on a precipice. "Looks like drama has a way of finding us," he murmured, his eyes locked with hers, a mixture of frustration and longing flaring deep inside. "Maybe we should decide together, Neecy." In that moment, the air was electric with possibility. their unspoken words sliding across the chasm that opened between them, shadows moving in the backdrop of their emotions. The vibrant colors of love and fear twisted around them like a living thing, ready to either flourish or fade away. "Let's not let everyone else dictate this," she finally said, the weight of her decision heavy yet liberating, her heart racing in tune with the shifting tension. Not this time. As their eyes held steady, it was clear that they were still teetering on a fragile edge, both together and apart, grasping at what the future could hold. Scene 28. Strength and Vulnerability. As the late afternoon sun dipped lower in the sky, its golden rays spilled through the leaves of the old oak tree, casting playful shadows on the dusty ground. The air was thick with the scent of earth and summer blooms, interrupted now and then by the laughter of children playing nearby. Jean Fabian sat on the weathered wooden bench, its paint chipped away over decades, each flake a story of its own. He fiddled with the edge of his shirt, feeling the rough seam against his palm as a gentle breeze blew through, carrying with it the chill of the approaching evening. Neecy McKinney approached, her expression a mix of curiosity and apprehension. The frail tangles of sweetgrass brushed against her fingertips, her shoes kicking up the dust as she stepped closer. She took a seat beside him, the wood creaking beneath her weight, a sound that mingled with the soft rustle of leaves overhead. "Looks like autumn is creeping in," she remarked, her voice light but with an undertone of something deeper. She glanced at Jean, catching the shadow of worry etched across his face. "Maybe," he replied, his tone teasing but strained. "Either that or the world's just getting tired of summer." Jean forced a chuckle, disguising the weight that sat on his chest, his heart racing in a way that left him both excited and exposed. Neecy turned slightly to face him, her dark eyes sparkling with a mixture of concern and encouragement. "What's really going on, Jean?" she pressed gently, breaking down the facade he had so carefully constructed. He hesitated, the laughter of children in the distance blurring into an almost ghostly reminder of their own childhood. "You know how it is," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper, weighted with honesty. "Sometimes it's easier to laugh than to admit what really eats at you." Neecy nodded slowly, the sincerity of his words sinking in. "It's okay to be scared, you know?" Jean turned to look at her, the golden light catching her hair, illuminating the dreams woven into her very being. I always felt this pressure to be something," he confessed, breaking the rhythm of their light banter. "To be strong, funny, everything everyone expects. But deep down, I'm just a kid who doesn't want to mess up." The breeze picked up, ruffling his shirt, and he took a deep breath. "There were times when all I wanted was to scream that I was afraid," he continued, his voice more earnest now, "afraid of losing every piece of me that I thought mattered, afraid I wouldn't ever be enough." Neecy's expression shifted, the warmth of her concern shifting into a realization. "You're enough, Jean, you've always been enough." For a heartbeat, the world around them faded away, the laughter of children, the rustling leaves, until it was just him and her, suspended in a moment filled with heavy truth. "But what if I never get over my past? What if I keep messing things up?" Jean's words caught in his throat, a tumultuous tide of vulnerability crashing over him. Neecy leaned in closer, her gaze steady, drawing him in. "You have to trust that it's okay to be broken," she said, the sincerity slipping smoothly between them. "You've got to let those pieces show." Suddenly, the ghosts of their past risks and regrets loomed heavy and looming. The unspoken attachments they held for one another sparked a fresh, electrifying tension. There was an undeniable depth in her eyes, a reflection of shared histories and dreams that hadn't quite died, waiting in the wings for their chance to sparkle again. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of crimson and indigo, Jean felt an old flame flicker to life. Would they be brave enough to explore it, or would the past bind them once again? Maybe being vulnerable isn't the worst thing, he mused aloud, his heart racing rapidly. Maybe it's where strength is really found. Neecy smiled softly, wonder shining in her gaze. Maybe it is. And for the first time in a long time, Jean felt the weight of his fears lessen, if only just a bit. Scene 29. Time apart. Jean stood at the window of Neecy's bedroom, the musky scent of the old wooden pane mixing with the fresh paint she had chosen for the walls. an audacious seafoam green that reminded him of summer days. He watched the soft cascade of sunlight filter through the leaves of the oak tree outside, casting playful shadows that danced across the floor like memories flitting through his mind. Each flicker pulsated with fleeting moments they'd shared, laughter echoing in forgotten corners, whispered secrets swelling into promises that never truly materialized. "Niecey," he began, turning to face her. His voice trembled slightly, betraying the calm facade he attempted to present. "Do you really think moving is the right choice?" Niecey shuffled through stacks of art supplies, brushes, half-finished canvases, and tubes of paint strewn like chaotic thoughts across the floor. Her brow furrowed deeply, a tell that Jean recognized all too well as uncertainty. "It's not like I want to leave, Jean." A tremor in her words punctuated the air. "But what else can I do? There's no opportunity for me here." "Opportunity? Is that really what you think you need?" Jean stepped forward, frustration simmering just below the surface as he crossed his arms. "What about us? What about all these years?" Niecey paused, catching the weight of his gaze and the lingering hint of resentment teetering behind his earnest eyes. "It's not just about you and me," she countered, though her voice faltered, as if she doubted the truth of her own statement. "I have to find my way. You know that." As silence thickened the air, a sudden noise erupted from outside, a couple of children arguing over a toy sharp and insistent, yet somehow innocent. Jean's thoughts traveled to their own childhood, the days spent dreaming versus the bitter echoes of reality they now faced. Just then, her younger brother Eli burst into the room, a whirlwind of energy and innocence. "Niecey, you said you'd help me with my project." His voice broke through the tension like the first spring rain, invigorating yet disarming. Niecey smiled, her expression brightening momentarily, distracted from the heaviness. "All right, I'm coming." "You could stay, you know," Eli said, his small voice ringing with naive conviction. "You don't have to go." "Eli," Niecey shot a glance at him. "We've talked about this." She quickly knelt to meet his eyes at his level, but Jean sensed her attempt to mask the guilt threatening to flood in. "I promise I'll always be here for you, no matter where I am. Okay?" Eli peered at her, uncertain but resolute. "Okay." He lingered a moment longer, measuring the weight of what was being settled beneath the surface, before darting out of the room. As the door clicked shut, the tension returned full force. Jean stepped closer, compelled by urgency. "You know he looks up to you, right? You can't just leave, not like this." "Jean, stop," she implored, rubbing the back of her neck with a fidgety hand. "You're acting like I'm abandoning everything. It's not that simple." Jean searched her eyes, each glimmer a testament to the dreams she harbored. "So what's your plan, Niecey? Leave and forget the life we had?" "Forget? I wouldn't dare." A flash of anger sparked within her, her pride flaring up like a shield. "But I can't keep standing still. It's not fair to either of us to pretend everything's okay just because of some nostalgia." "Then what do you call it when you choose everything or everyone else over me?" Jean felt his heart race, the weight of words tumbling out before he could rein them in. "I've waited for you to see that we could build something together." "For what?" Niecey stepped back, the warmth slowly dissipating, replaced by a palpable chill. "For the same pain again? The separations, the uncertainty?" Suddenly, vulnerability breached Jean's bravado. I don't want to start again without you. Not now, not ever." Niecey's breath caught, her expression shifting. "Jean, But the words drifted off, scattered like leaves caught in a windstorm. "Maybe I'm just scared, okay?" he confessed, unraveling into raw honesty, and as the tremors of apprehension settled between them, the silence morphed into something more tender. "You will always be a part of me." "Likewise," she whispered back, the weight of the moment cascading between them. "Can't we at least try to figure this out together?" His heart beat steadily, a plea wrapped in hope. The path ahead might be tangled, but beneath the layers of uncertainty lay a flickering flame that refused to be extinguished. Niecey looked away, momentarily lost in the vibrant chaos of art supplies, before slowly meeting his gaze again, the corners of her lips twitching upward. "Maybe we should start with what our past has taught us, together." In that shared space, amidst the remnants of torn dreams and opportunities swirling in the air, something shifted, an understanding molded from fractured reveries. Scene 30. Strengthening the bond. Under the hazy afternoon light of a cluttered studio, Jean rummaged through a pile of paint tubes, the smell of turpentine mixing with the dust of neglected canvases. He was seated on a well-worn stool, the wood creaking under his weight, as a faint echo of laughter from their past played in his mind. Each color he unwrapped whispered faint recollections of art classes and shared dreams. Neecy stood across the room, balancing a canvas against the easel, her brow furrowed in concentration. The vibrant reds and blues of her previous work clashed with the muted tones of Jean's attempt at a landscape. "You know, combining colors is like blending emotions, right?" she said, turning to him, a teasing glint in her eye. "But I think you need a little more practice." "More practice? Neecy, I'm telling you, my landscape has depth," Jean retorted, laughter crinkling the corners of his eyes, but the insecurity surged beneath his bravado. "Depth like the bottom of a mine shaft?" "Fair point," she laughed, hands on her hips, light pouring through the window, making her curly hair shimmer like gold. "But at least you've got it covered in paint." The banter flowed easily, yet an undercurrent of tension began to thrum between them, as if the air itself was charged with the weight of unspoken words. Jean shifted nervously, suddenly uncertain. "You know, I was thinking," he began, but stopped short. A contained shyness overcame him, his usual confidence faltering. It was a strange feeling being back here with her, surrounded by the comfort of familiarity, yet faced with the unknown of what reconnecting truly meant. Neecy could sense the change. "What were you thinking?" she prodded gently, her tone coaxing. There was something fragile in that moment, a shared vulnerability, as if they were looking into the depths of one another's hearts rather than just the paint-stained walls around them. "Just that maybe we could really turn this into something," Jean said, and his voice softened. "Like when we made that mural at the community center. Remember?" The laughter faded as nostalgia washed over him, intertwining with the weight of their past. She stepped closer, tilting her head as if trying to gauge the seriousness of his offering. "But this isn't just a mural, Jean. This is us." Her expression shifted, vulnerability glistening in her eyes. "It's different. I mean, what if it ends up as a mistake? What if we can't balance this, the art, our lives, everything?" The studio felt smaller as Jean's heart raced, caught between longing and fear. "Mistakes are part of the process," he said, a hint of urgency creeping into his words. "We learn, we grow, just like you've taught me." Neecy studied him, searching for echoes of the boy she had loved, the adventurous soul who once climbed trees just to feel the wind rush against his face. "But what if this time we can't go back?" she said, her voice trembling slightly as her bravado faltered. "When did we ever go back?" Jean countered, the weight of her question igniting a fire within him. "We fight, we fall, but that's what makes us stronger, like right now, together." She felt the gravity of their connection pull at her heartstrings, a deep well of emotion spiraling within her. Finding a quieter resolve, Neecy slid her hand across the edge of the easel, impatiently brushing off a fleck of old paint. "Let's just paint," she murmured, the invitation hanging in the air as vulnerable as a breath. "No grand plans, just us. Here, now." Jean nodded slowly, a mixture of relief and excitement blossoming in his chest. They gathered paintbrushes, the silence thickening around them, filled with unspoken understanding. As they began to layer colors on the canvas, the atmosphere transformed, each stroke of the brush resonating with the rhythm of their shared heartbeat. The connection deepened, laughter and swipes of paint merging like the intertwining paths of their lives. Each mix of color represented hopes, fears, and the beautiful chaos of rekindling a bond that had never truly faded. "See?" Jean said with a grin, smudging a bold blue across the canvas that splatters onto Neecy's cheek. "That's a little better." Neecy laughed and retaliated with her own splash, a quick flick of crimson that landed just below his chin. "You'll need a bigger brush to capture what's really happening here." Her eyes sparkled, joy tempered by vulnerability, a moment suspended in time. They worked side by side, the canvas blurring into the background, the chaotic laughter of their childhood painting itself into the air. In that small studio, despite the uncertainty, they began to weave their dreams anew, one brushstroke at a time. The loud crash of laughter from down the hall momentarily interrupted their focus. It was Germaine and Lydia, debating the best way to mix colors, carrying the kind of competitive spirit that could spark an art revolution. "You call that blending?" Jermaine shouted, a friendly challenge rolling through the air as he burst into the studio, followed closely by Lydia, her eyes wide with mischief. "Maybe we should show you how it's done," Lydia chimed, her playful grin matching Neecey's. Amidst the noise, Neecy glanced at Jean. Their eyes met, and for that singular moment it felt like everything was possible again. "Let's show them what we've got," Jean said, a contagious grin spreading across his face. And as they both lobbed paint in the direction of their friends, laughter erupted, pulling them closer together, echoing memories and promising a future neither had dared to dream of just moments before. Scene 31, the Night of Revelations. The soft echo of laughter floated through the air, but the night felt charged as Jean leaned against the weathered wooden fence, eyes fixed on the horizon where the last slivers of sunlight surrendered to dusk. He turned slightly, glancing at Neecy, her silhouette catching the fading light, the hues of her dress dancing with the subtle breeze. "What do you think we'd be doing right now if we hadn't, well, you know?" he asked, a hint of lightness in his tone. He forced a smile, but the underlying tension made his jaw tighten. Neecy shifted, running her fingers through her curls. Her gaze dropped momentarily to the ground, collecting her thoughts. "Probably chasing dreams, or each other," she replied, a sheepish grin surfacing, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. The flicker of mischief she wore always held an underlying sadness, like an unfinished painting leaning in the corner of a forgotten room. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "Do you ever think about it?" "Think about what?" she asked, her voice quiet, but the question hung heavy between them. Her eyes finally met his, revealing a kaleidoscope of emotions: hope, fear, longing, and uncertainty. "Us," he said, the word lingering like the scent of jasmine in the air. "What could have been?" Neecy's brow furrowed. She shifted her weight uncertainly, pulling her dress tighter around her. "Sometimes, but it feels like dreaming of a place I can't reach, like grasping at smoke." Jean's heart raced as he leaned in slightly, closing the distance but keeping his composure. "Neecy, you've always had a way of seeing the world. Still do. It's almost like you and reality are just passing ships." "Reality's not always pretty," she said softly, her voice trembling. She gave a half-hearted laugh, but it fell flat. "Sometimes it's just a mess, Jean." The crackling of fallen leaves underfoot broke the silence. Jada, a close friend, trotted up with a slice of pizza, her laughter echoing, unaware of the fragile atmosphere. "You two look deep in thought. What's the world's greatest mystery?" Jean, grateful for the momentary distraction, chuckled. "World's greatest mystery? How you manage to eat pizza at every gathering." Jada teased. "It's a gift. You should try it sometime." She bowed theatrically, then turned, her laughter clattering through the air. As Jada ambled away, Jean returned his focus to Neecy, her face now clouded, as if the moon had hidden behind a curtain of clouds. "What about you, really? It's like you keep everyone at arm's length." Neecy's gaze fell aside, caught in the tumult of her thoughts. "You think I don't want to be close?" she asked, the edge in her tone stark against the soft evening. I'm afraid. I don't want to let anyone down again." "Let anyone down? Neecy, you're not responsible for everyone else's happiness." His voice was firm, a protective edge breaking through. He took a step closer, their breaths nearly merging in the cool air. "But I keep losing. My dreams keep slipping, and relationships, they scare me." Her voice, normally vibrant and hearty like a melody, turned soft and shattered. "Do you think I'm just floating along, that I don't miss what we had?" Jean rejoined, his own vulnerability breaking through layers. He held her gaze, the liquidity of emotions swirling between them, deep, tumultuous, and beautifully chaotic. "Don't you see? We miss the moments that count, those simple evenings talking about nothing. You closed that door on us. I didn't." The silence wrapped around them, thick and palpable. They stood together, the world outside their bubble distant, and the noise muffled as they both gathered their thoughts. "Do you think we can just pick up where we left off?" Neecy's words were hesitant, her sincerity palpable as she searched for an answer in his eyes. Jean's heart raced, a mix of hope and dread. "What if we can't?" She stepped a fraction closer, her warmth tangible. "What if we find a way?" The world around them faded, the laughter and the music of their friends drawing further away. In the unbroken silence, it felt like a point of no return, a realization settling in the spaces between their words. As the last remnants of the day melded into night, it felt like they were finally stepping towards uncovering what had always been, a tender, fiery journey awaiting its next steps. "Maybe it's time to dive into the deep end, Neecy," he murmured, his gaze unwavering, filled with tentative hope. Scene 32. Facing the fears, rain fell steadily outside, drumming on the window panes like anxious hearts. Jean sat on the edge of the couch in Niecey's small, sunlit living room, shadows dancing around them as clouds swept overhead. The humidity hung thick in the air, mixing with the scent of freshly baked bread wafting from the kitchen, an olfactory embrace that felt all too warm and inviting. He watched Neecy, her expressive features flickering between excitement and trepidation, as they prepared for the next chapter of their lives, together yet apart. "Jean," Neecy began, pushing a strand of dark hair behind her ear, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if this doesn't work out?" Jean leaned closer, his heart racing beneath his vibrant t-shirt, a remnant from their high school days when he felt invincible. "What if it does?" he countered, his tone playful yet earnest. "I mean, we've both been through so much. Look at us now." "Yeah, but you know what I'm talking about." Her emerald eyes darkened, brimming with unshed memories, her laughter mingling with tears from their past. "You found a way to move on. What if I can't?" Jean reached across, gently squeezing her hand, feeling the warmth radiate between them, a fragile bridge over the chasm of uncertainty. "You're not alone in this, Neecy. You never have to be." Outside, the rain intensified, the wind picking up and swirling leaves into mini whirlwinds as if nature itself was echoing their turbulent thoughts. Neecy pulled her hand free, standing to pace, her fingers digging into the fabric of her dress. "You don't understand. I've always been scared of commitment. It's like—" She paused, searching for the right words, frustration knitting her brows together. "It's like every time I think about being with you, I see this beautiful picture, but then I remember the cracks." "Cracks can be mended," Jean said softly, his gaze unwavering. "Love isn't perfect. It's not about having a flawless picture. It's about what you do with the mess." Just then, his younger brother Kyle burst into the room, drenched from the rain. "You two are having one of those heart-to-heart conversations, huh?" he quipped, shaking off droplets like a puppy. "Ready for a movie marathon instead?" "Not now, Kyle," Jean replied, aiming a mock-stern glare at his brother, though light flickered in his eyes, half amused. Kyle rolled his eyes but feigned retreat. "All right, but I think you two need a distraction." Neecy's laughter sliced through the tension as she looked at Jean, sharing a silent bond over Kyle's interruptions. It grounded them, piercing through the disquiet that loomed. "Maybe that's exactly what we need," she said, shifting on her feet. Jean stood up, edging closer to her once more, their eyes locking in an unspoken understanding. "Or maybe we just need to stop fighting what we feel." "You make it sound so simple," she lamented, her whispers heavy with doubt. The sun occasionally peeked through the mercurial clouds, illuminating her face, a fleeting spotlight. The light infused warmth in the room, wrapping around them like an embrace. "It is simple, Neecy," he said, leaning in gently, the inches closing, the air electric. "It's your heart that's making it complicated." Neecy hesitated, the weight of his words merging with the gravitational pull between them. She always felt drawn to him, yet fear gripped her in a vice. "But what if you end up hating me?" she breathed, barely audible above the rain. "Never." His voice resonated within her like a promise etched into the very fabric of their connection. In that electrifying moment, every past hurt, every lingering doubt hung suspended in the air. Uncertainty flowed like the rain outside, turning the world into a blurred watercolor painting of emotion. Jean reached for her face, tangling his fingers in her curls, gently guiding her closer. Her breath caught, the air thick with anticipation and yearning. As they drew together, their foreheads touched, and the surrounding world faded, the darkness of doubt dissipated like mist in sunlight. Just as their lips met in a soft exploration, the fabric of time unraveled, leaving only the thrum of their hearts, beating in a shared rhythm. And then, in that mesmerizing kiss, with sounds of the storm softly whipping around them, they felt the cracks begin to seal, just a little, under the pressure of something far more powerful, their hope. Scene 33. A symbol of hope. The air was thick with the scent of fresh rain, the lingering smell casting an earthy aroma that blended with the faint metallic notes of the city. A light mist hung in the evening twilight, softening the contours of the crumbling old buildings that loomed over the street corner. Jean Fabian stood beneath the flickering glow of a nearby streetlight, his brow furrowed, the low hum of traffic the only sound mingling with the distant laughter of groups gathered in the park. His usually vibrant spirit felt heavy, as if the weight of unspoken words pressed against his chest. He glanced down at the small box nestled in his palm, its edges cool and reassuring, even as his heart raced. The tension in the air reminded him of old arguments, razor-thin threads of jealousy and regret entwining with fleeting hope. Shaking his head, he banished the echoes of their younger selves, how quickly dreams turned to ash. He needed to push aside the doubts, the what-ifs, if he ever wanted her to understand. Nearby, Neecy McKinney approached with a confident stride, but her face bore the traces of an inner storm. Her curls bounced around her face, and the vibrant blue of her dress made her seem both radiant and painfully vulnerable. "Why are we here, Jean?" She kept her arms crossed, as though warding off something unnameable, an unspoken wall between them. "Is this another one of those let's talk moments?" He shifted his weight, his jaw clenched. "Maybe we should talk about the real reason we're here," he replied, the words tumbling out more defensively than intended. "I wanted to give you something." Her eyes narrowed, a flicker of curiosity weaving through her guarded expression. "What is it?" He took a deep breath, the cool air filling his lungs as he opened the box to reveal a delicate silver pendant, an abstract shape that hinted at a heart, yet also reflected the jagged edges of their love story. The soft gleam caught the fading sunlight, illuminating the hope that had remained buried beneath layers of hurt. "Jean, it's beautiful," she breathed, the tension in her shoulders slowly dissipating. "It's not just the pendant," he said, catching her gaze. "It's a reminder of us, of what we've been through. A sudden shout echoed from across the street, fracturing the moment. "You think you know everything, huh? Just because you got on the team, you can talk to me like that." The chaos came from a nearby group of kids, their voices hushed now, eyes darting back and forth. Niecey's gaze flickered for a moment, concern etched across her features. "Not now," Jean said sharply, his frustration spilling over. "This isn't supposed to be about them." Seeing his anger, Neecy bristled. "It never is with you, Jean. Everything you've ever done has been on your terms." The shadows deepened as a collective chuckle erupted from the kids, stirring layers of insecurity within him. With clenched fists, Jean turned away for a moment, grappling with the realization that the past lingered heavier than he had anticipated. "Look," Neecy continued, her voice more measured now, "we've both changed. I'm not sure if this," she gestured to the pendant, "makes sense anymore." Her words wove barbs of pain, striking at his heart. Jean's head snapped up, frustration and yearning melding in the warmth of his voice. "What sense does it need to make? We can't keep pretending that we don't have that history. Life keeps throwing us apart." Her eyes glistened, a telltale sign of the internal conflict raging behind her calm demeanor. "Maybe we both need a little distance, Jean. Do we really want to fight for something that hurt us both?" Raw silence buzzed between them, a mix of longing and fear. He stepped dangerously close, their breaths mingling as they stood locked in a moment so tangible, even the cool night air vibrated with unresolved tension. "Neecy, I know it's scary, but can we at least try?" A heartbeat stretched into eternity before she murmured, "What if we fail again?" "Then we fail together," he said, reaching forward and taking her hand, feeling the warmth of her skin blend into the cool metal of the pendant in his palm, "and at least we'll know we tried." For a fraction of a second, the world melted away, sounds dimmed, darkness softened, and hope flickered like the tired streetlight above them. With a cautious smile finally breaking through, Neecy whispered, "Maybe that's all we need." Scene 34. A friend's concern. The smell of fresh paint filled the air in Neecy's small art studio, mingling with the remnants of burnt umber and cobalt blue that clung to her fingertips. Light streamed through the window, illuminating the streaks on the canvas, where colors collided and merged like chaotic thoughts. She stood back to assess her latest piece, a swirling tempest of emotions that mirrored her own internal struggles with decision-making. Neecy, this looks amazing, said Chloe, her best friend, her voice overflowing with admiration as she stepped into the bright space. The soft creaking of the floorboards punctuated the otherwise tranquil atmosphere, but Neecy barely registered it. Really? Neecy wiped her hands on her apron, an involuntary smile forming. I don't know. It feels unfinished. Chloe's brow furrowed slightly, her eyes narrowing as she crossed her arms. You're not listening to me. This is brilliant, so much energy. But it's not just about the colors on canvas, is it? Neecy turned back to the painting, her eyes drifting over the hues, almost as if she were searching for answers hidden within them. What do you mean? With a slight tilt of her head, Chloe stepped closer, chewing her lower lip. You know what I mean? It's Jean, isn't it? The pause hung in the air, thick enough to slice through. Neecy continued staring at the painting, aware yet unready to confront the swirling feelings inside. He's Jean. Her voice was ripe with ambivalence, and the weight of her words echoed through the simple space. Exactly. But what is that supposed to mean? Chloe pressed, her voice rising slightly. You told me you were worried about falling back into the same patterns. You've changed so much since high school. Are you really ready to go back there? To him? Neecy's fingers tightened involuntarily. The palette knife trembled in her grip as a surge of emotion swelled inside her. Colors bled into one another on the canvas, creating a beautifully chaotic mix, just like her thoughts. I don't know. I thought I did. Chloe stepped closer, her voice lowering. But is that love or just nostalgia? You don't want to end up trapped in memories, right? He'll sweep you off your feet with those goofy jokes and that charming smile, but what comes next? Outside, laughter from children playing echoed, momentarily drowning out the tension brewing between the two friends. Neecy's gaze drifted outside, her heart caught in a tug-of-war between past memories and present realities. You think I'm just reminiscing? The silence stretched again, both of them feeling the gravity of the question. It was Chloe who finally broke it, crossing her arms with concern etched on her face. You have your dreams, Neecy, your art. You've put so much time into building a life for yourself. It's like, deep down, I feel like you're not sure he's a part of that. And if you let him back in, what does that do to what you've created? The conversation began to weave around Neecy like the colors on her canvas. Bright and vibrant, yet dangerously unpredictable. She took a deep breath, the scent of linseed oil filling her lungs, grounding her momentarily. But what if he is? It's just complicated. I feel something when I'm with him, something real. Real? Chloe asked incredulously, leaning back against the workbench piled with paint tubes. Neecy, you have a bright future ahead. I mean, he might just be another distraction. A charming one, yes, but a distraction nonetheless. A moment of weighty silence filled the room again, reverberating as Neecy considered her friend's words. The sunlight poured into the space, gilding the colorful chaos around them, and for a fleeting moment everything felt almost perfect. Maybe I'm just afraid, Neecy finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Afraid of needing him as much as I do. Chloe's expression softened, empathy replacing the tension that had filled the air just moments before. Then maybe take a step back. You don't have to choose right now. Or maybe, Neecy bit her lip, a small spark igniting in her chest. I need to see him, to know if he still makes my heart race the way he used to. Chloe sighed, a hint of vulnerability in her eyes. Just promise me one thing. Don't lose yourself, okay? You deserve a love that adds to your life, not takes away from it. As the late afternoon sun cast elongated shadows across the studio floor, Neecy felt a sobering mix of resolve and trepidation begin to settle into her bones. I promise. But deep down she wondered if those words could ever hold the weight they needed. Scene 35. Dark clouds gather. The sky above Northgate swirled with dark, ominous clouds, mirroring the tempest brewing in Jean Fabian's heart. A faint drizzle fell, tapping a syncopated rhythm against the hood of his jacket as he stood outside Neecy's apartment. The air was thick with tension, charged like the still moments before a thunderstorm. The scent of damp earth mingled with the warm, sweet aroma of fresh-baked bread, wafting from the nearby bakery, drawing memories of simpler times when they shared secret dreams wrapped in the innocence of youth. Inside, Jean could hear the rhythmic clattering of dishes, a symphony of domesticity that felt foreign in the weight of his spiraling thoughts. He turned, catching a glimpse of a shadow in the window, a flicker of Niecey's silhouette against the soft glow of the lamp. She was touching the wall art they had picked together long ago, their initials scrawled beneath a whimsical painting of swirling galaxies, an echo of their vibrant childhood imaginations. As the drizzle intensified, Jean clenched his fist, a reminder of his urgency. What if this was the last time he saw her? What if they were to be pulled apart once again? The thought gnawed at him, raw and unrelenting. He glanced toward his old friend Marshall, leaning against the lamppost, his eyes scanning the skies as if searching for answers within the clouds. "Hey, man, you good?" Marshall called, pulling Jean from his reverie. He pushed off the lamppost and walked closer, his comfort an anchor amidst the chaos in Jean's mind. "You look like you just swallowed a lemon." "Just thinking," Jean replied, his gaze returning to Niecey's window. "About everything, her moving, us." A determined edge crept into his voice, but the words tasted bitter. Marshall arched an eyebrow, half grinning. "Look, if you don't tell her how you feel, you might regret it. You can't let her go again." Just then, the door opened and Niecey stepped outside, her sneakers a bright contrast against the dreary backdrop. The raindrops glistened on her deep brown skin as she pulled the collar of her oversized hoodie, a complex mix of vulnerability and strength radiating from her. Jean's breath caught at the sight. "Niecey," he called, stepping forward, anticipation and dread churning within him. "You came," she said, her eyes lighting up for just a moment before the weight of the moment settled between them. "I didn't think you would." "I had to see you," he said, holding her gaze, forcing the words through the walls he built. She stepped closer, the tension between them palpable, thick as the humidity in the air. "What's wrong?" Niecey asked, sensing his tension. "You look serious." Jean hesitated, the words twisted in his throat. What if you go? To New York? I mean, I can't." He paused, the silence expanding into an uncomfortable space. Niecey brushed rain-soaked curls from her face, exposing an uncertainty he recognized all too well. "Jean, I have to follow my dreams. This opportunities come and go, Niecey," he shot back, but the passion behind his words softened, faltering against the sincerity in her expression. "What about us? What was all of this for?" "Us," she echoed, her voice tremulous. "You mean, what was it for if I leave before I've even begun?" Jean's heart sank as her words hit home. This was not just a conversation of two hearts. It was a haunting reminder of all they could lose. Rain dripped steadily, each drop feeling like a weight on his shoulders. As she stepped closer, Niecey placed a gentle hand on his arm, the warmth pulling him in. "Jean, dreams scare me too. I'm always so afraid. What if I can't balance it?" He searched her eyes, where the glint of hope was masked by shadows of doubt. It was these shared vulnerabilities that had drawn them together in the first place, igniting a connection that felt sacred, filled with whispered promises. "Then let's figure it out together." For a heartbeat, time stopped, surrounded by the encroaching storm. A crack of thunder echoed in the distance, reverberating their unspoken fears. Their silence stretched between them, heavy and filled with unuttered dreams. Suddenly, a voice broke through the tension, bubbling with excitement. "Hey, look, there's lightning. We should." It was Marcel, Niecey's younger brother, darting out of the building and catching them mid-tangle as he pointed toward the sky. "Mom said you need to come in before." He started, glancing between them. His innocent observation disrupted the moment, but the laughter in his eyes only deepened the bond that was forming between Jean and Niecey, a reminder of all that was at stake. "Just a minute, Marcel," Niecey smiled, waves of warmth washing back as they exchanged glances, both aware that outside forces constantly disrupted their fragile connection.